You are listening to the Tricorder transmissions. Or leave. Episode 5.
Just what the doctor ordered. Right, doctor? I couldn't have prescribed better.
Hello again, and welcome to another bout of Shore Leave. This is our 5th episode, and this is the show where we talk about Trek conventions and Trek in general. So tonight with me is my co-host. She's taking a few hours off of working on her STLV bod, the increasingly svelte and always awesome Heather Barker.
That's hilarious. Thank you. I'm super excited since we are now less than 3 months away from Star Trek Las Vegas.
I know, crazy that we're getting so close, like 3 months away.
It's nuts.
So exciting. Actually, before we get into more STLV talk, I want to take a second and talk about our special guest this evening. He's been on the show before, and now he's back to give us some updates on what he's been up to and a look ahead to STLV 50, the one and only Mr. Larry Nemecek is with us.
Wow, this is exciting. And I hope it's going to be more than a wee bout to shore leave.
Well, it depends on how long we go, but we're known for going very long on shore leave, so this could get very into the weeds.
I don't want to break any Scotty records, but, you know.
Well, we have something to shoot for.
There we go.
Something to shoot for. So, Larry, it's been since about August of 2015 since you've been on the Tricorder transmissions. It was quite a while. It was right after the 2015 Las Vegas convention, and you were teasing the release of Portal 47 at that point. And I thought it would be a really cool idea, before we get into any convention talk, to give you a chance to update us and maybe give a bit of an overview on Portal 47 to anybody who is not familiar with it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks. That seemed like a million years ago. What's been exciting is Portal 47 is basically my insider's deep dive way of getting at all the stuff that I've accumulated in my brain and in my Rolodex and in my archives and things for the last 20 years that really I knew I had to get out to fandom that wasn't getting out through the normal channels, even like conventions and podcasts and interviews and my own writing and my own interviewing. And I'd been looking for a way that I could offer some unique things to fandom as a service and as a business that was, fair to me, but also a great, price for everybody. So I've developed this and got it launched in the fall. And I call it a mini-con all year long, no matter where your center seat is.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, but really it's for new fans, for old fans, for bored fans, for fans who don't even know how much they don't know. There's several components in the monthly package. Well, that's scary, isn't it? What? I don't know everything? Yeah, no, it's been exciting because I come on and interview, and I always love, I decided years ago not to do my own podcast, so I enjoy being a guest and talking, and people seem to like having me around. And I know that there's still some pointed ways of connecting the dots for people. That's something that just a few years back, since we've been in the fallow time here, which seems like it's about to end, but it's still an all new time with the new series coming and the state of the divorced franchise, and the parents and all that. But of all the years of just getting background out to fans through my books and through the magazines that I've edited and all of that, we live in a time where everybody is so out of the box and all the technology is allowing things. So Portal 47 is a way, it's finally kind of come along at the same time where I've figured out some things that I can offer, and we have things like phone conferencing as well as, everything digital. So Portal 47 is like a monthly package that includes all kinds of things, and it's at portal47.net. But mainly, I just say it's an all new, like a 21st century way of getting at the 24th century you love with a package of features, and two of which, the highlights for me, although there's several pieces of this, is what I call the telebriefings, where we have one of the proudest things I've been able to do, and that always excites me more than anything else does, which is not fair because it's all exciting, but having the voices from Star Trek that no one's ever heard before or rarely heard. People from the crews, stand-ins, stunt people, extras, crew people, some of the design leads. And I'm leaving room in this because I'm going to offer a second level of Portal 47 here in just the next couple of months. I'm going to roll that out. But I've been busy evolving this and tweaking it, and we have a great group of people. The biggest challenge is almost what I'm doing right now, is trying to get it across what it is, because I feel like I'm pioneering something, and I'm in a unique place to do it, and I don't even think it exists in any other franchise or genre, much less Star Trek. So it's my live touches, again, from my archives and memories and Rolodex, and sharing that with people in a way that, for the cost of 2 movie tickets a month, or 3 lattes a month for $25, it's a year. And we have a lot of things. We have a good gang that's expanding every month, but we have barely begun to fly. We have barely begun to warp. So I'm just excited to be at our live events, where we're going to have some portal parties, because that's part of it. I try to have live as well as all the online and digital features. And so I invite everybody to go take a look at it. I'm about to upgrade all my websites here, hopefully by the time of summer con season, and have some videos and things up too. But if you're content with just reading, you can go check it out.
Oh, it's very awesome. Something I wanted to touch base with you about, because I remember we had a very long conversation about this when we talked about Portal 47 back in August of last year.
It's probably too long, but yeah.
It's been a while. We were talking about, we were actually fascinated because Craig and I are both AV guys by trade for many, many years. And you were talking about a process of digitizing a lot of old audio tapes and restoring them.
Oh, yeah.
And you had been doing that for CDs for a long time, that you've been putting out at the cons and things. But what's up with that for Portal 47? Are we getting more of those old audio recordings that you have?
Right. One of the features is because they need to be digitized anyway. And even my on-speaker CD, that I've done for Vegas, that's like a drop in the bucket compared to the hundreds of hours that I've got here. Wow. And even forcing myself onto a schedule to do that seems like it's creeping along. So not that this is, made a huge push, but one of the features of Portal 47 is an archive access to my archives. And I don't think I can quite compare to the voluminous records that like Roddenberry's doing, but I've got plenty of pieces that way. I've got video that I've shot just for my Trekland blog, for my Switching to Visual series, that I haven't put up yet. I'm way behind on doing a lot of. I have interviews with Ron Moore from 2 or 3 years ago that I've not put up, much less a ton of other interesting things. And not all of it's celebrities and people you'd know, but a lot of it just really interesting people. The guy that designed the first Star Trek role-playing game back in the 70s and 80s, I stumbled into him at a convention in the Midwest, and I was like, oh my God, you're that guy? Oh my God. So anyway, I've got a lot of things, video and audio, those old audios you were talking about. So yeah, one of the features every month is there's one release of images or audio digitized or video. Here the last 2 or 3 months, 1 month with all the news on Star Trek, 2017, the series, 1 month I just, and I don't think it has not been even piecemealed out anywhere live, but I had the audio from my first long sit down with Brian Brian Fuller, when he was like a rookie writer on Voyager, and he's talking about some of the things that he's interested in or whatever. So I didn't even worry about editing. I cleaned it up, a basic remaster pass, and then I said, here, everybody, here's this hour-long sit-down with Brian where we were both talking about episodes and talking about general things. So, nice. Here's a peek into somebody when they were young, and compare that with now. And I had video back, it was high 8, it wasn't HD, but when Nick Meyer came out with his book, and I never posted it, and I said, here's the raw video, bang. And so that's the kind of thing, aside from our telebriefings, that get a lot of attention. But yeah, thank you for asking that. I'm still way behind on getting these tapes digitized, though. You
need help. Do you have a secretary?
Oh, believe me. It'll be Confederate money, though, for the first year or something.
So, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm detecting this, and I just want to mention it again for anybody who's listening who's considering subscribing to Portal 47. But it sounds like to me is, you sign and you pay one price ongoing, and you just get access to this ever increasing amount of content. And so you get more and more and more value for your money constantly, and you just keep paying the same exact thing, right? There's no add-ons and no extras, right?
No, it's just a flat. Yeah, it's a flat rate.
Wow.
There's a package. I mean, like it's not like you have access to a library with 5,000 pieces in it. Maybe in a few years.
Not yet,
but yeah, it's out there, and yeah, and you know what? I am tweaking it. I do have a stable platform of features, but I'll be tweaking it along. There's one thing I really haven't activated yet that no one's asked me about, but I'm going to have a local version of we have the Geek Nation tours that I do that Karis has got me doing. Well, not to compete with that at all, but I'm going to offer Trekland tours where it's like a day tour. If you're in LA. And I'm going to have, and I keep saying this and I need to do it, but I'm going to have a menu of like 2 major places and 2 minor places. And there'll be a menu of a lot of those. And then you can pick, and then when you're here for the day, there'll be like a day rate. And then if you're a Portal 47 person, you'll get a big discount off of that. Wow. So I'll have it there as an item anyway. And then we'll tour around. We have a rental car, and if you're on vacation here, you can do it, because that's the only drawback to being based anywhere and trying to do an online service like this, is that some of those live components you have to physically be together. So part of that is anybody who's in the portal. If I'm at a convention as a guest, and we have members there. Then we have a meetup, and it's on me, and if there's one person, or if we've got 5 or 10, like we'll have at Vegas or Comic-Con or someplace, or maybe now Phoenix Comic-Con. But that's one element too. You have at least one party a year that's in your package. And then when I go to the expanded level, it'll be even cooler. So you have even more of that.
Wow. That sounds pretty cool.
That's down the road. I'm going to announce those by summer. So, buckle up.
So when you're ready to announce them, you may have to come back on the show and talk about it again.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. And all of this, I'm trying to offer a broad swath of things, but I just have to say that one of the coolest things is when we do have a telebriefing, and I don't want anybody to think like that's the end all be all of the whole program, the whole Portal 47 experience. But there's just something about, I don't know, it's the producers, performers, presenters' satisfaction of when we have people out that people have never heard from before, and they're telling awesome stories. And I've had people, come back on our Facebook page or out in public and go, "Oh my God, that was just like the coolest thing ever," or that was such an awesome story. And again, it's not so much taking your fandom to this elitist level, unless you want to look at it that way, but there is just so much Star Trek out there. So many insights and so many ways of looking at it and so many voices we haven't heard from yet. And some of them, the years are going by. So, so this next week, we're going to have someone who was on crew for the original series.
No way.
Yes. Andrea Weaver, who was the 2nd and 3rd season women's costumer.
Wow.
Oh, how cool.
She was 22, and it was like her 2nd job in Hollywood.
That's unbelievable. 22. Holy cow.
So she's semi-retired and still does a lot of costuming work, but she had 50 years in the business, and I just came across her a couple of months ago.
Amazing.
I'm shocked and amazed that she has. But when I was a kid, I would get annoyed that, I was always a big background person, right? So, and I guess we're going to get, if we talk about conventions, maybe I should save that for our convention talk, because that drove a lot of my views and my misviews about conventions when I was first dipping my toe in the water. So maybe I'll save that. Anyway, but that's one of the awesome things to me about doing this is bringing out, like I said, old fans, new fans, bored fans, and fans that don't even know what they don't know.
Wow.
Because I think that's what we have, so much saturation, and there are so many. Fandom is with the digital realm and all the podcasting and all the websites, and some of it's kind of shallow and just fun. But there are so many people digging deeper and deeper and deeper into history and background, and so much stuff is more commonly known than just the 4 or 5 people that had the mystical keys to the cool stuff. You know what I'm saying, right? We have a broader swath of people being more aware. There are more insiderly jokes that more people get. Not as a snobby thing, but just as more stuff to share, and something that's new and not the same old that we've known for 30, 40 years. So I'm just thrilled to be able to add to that and bring my corner of it out that feel very privileged to have been part of so long. And again, not just all about the past, but the dusty past, but looking forward to our new wave and how things will be the same and different both.
Yeah, there's a lot coming down the pike this year for Star Trek, and it's going to be an exciting year. I mean, maybe controversial, I guess, and some people will be a little. We've been dealing with a lot of social media ire lately, but let's not get into that. Let's not get into that because I think all three of us are very positive about the future.
I am. Yeah, I want to get on with all the new stuff. And,
me
and
too.
if we have any, I've said what I've said before is I'll say what I said in 1986. Just shut up, people.
I think Heather just tweeted the same thing a couple days ago.
Pretty close to it.
Don't want to watch, then don't watch, but don't spoil it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think Claire also said something similar to that line.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, we're going to be getting into some convention talk here. And before we talk about some of our past...
We should really start a whole podcast that's only about conventions. That would be awesome.
Gee, I can't believe nobody's thought of that yet.
That would be amazing.
So Larry, before we start talking about the conventions past, I wanted to take a little bit of a test of your feelings on the rapid sellout, an unexpected sellout of STLV 50.
A year ago, 2 years ago, when they announced that the 50th was going to be a 5-day show, 5-day convention, I was just like, I remember telling people, because I would hear from people around the world, much less around the country, who had never been before to Vegas.
Yep.
And I would say, do me a favor, come next year, come in 2015, just so you can see it as a normal year, which sounds totally counterintuitive, right? No, I want to come for the most specialist, the most coolest ever Vegas ever. And I'm like, can you just come see it in a normal year before it inflates in a crazy way?
Yeah.
Because it's scary good, and it could be scary. I don't want to say scary bad, but scary insane.
Yes.
And the way that anybody jumps on a roller coaster would be. So I'm not knocking anything at all. I'm just remember telling people, gee, I just so you can compare, just so you saw it before it got insane. It's like I actually I never went to Comic-Con San Diego until about 06 and 07.
Yeah.
But I was actually there for a couple of years before it got absolutely crazy insane. And I've seen a couple of the other Comic-Cons that have inflated, the way this boom is right now. I actually saw them the same way. So I'm kind of glad that I did that. And not that Vegas is going to be on a Comic-Con level. We're still talking about a fraction of the people.
Right.
But on its own terms, it's going to be bigger. So, yeah. So then we get to the fall, and people are like, oh, they're freaking out about hotel rooms, and they're freaking out. And I'm like, it's not going to sell out. It's not going to. And then it did. And I was like, holy dilithium. It's so there you go. 5 days, a sold-out hotel, 2 sold-out hotels, and sold-out hall. I'm just, I want else on my captain's chair. It's just going to be.
It's going to be insane. And I don't think any of us expected it to sell out so quickly, but I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Heather and Claire twisted my arm to make me buy my general admission package ticket the second it went on sale, because we were literally just about to start recording when it went on sale, and they made us hold off recording until everybody could buy their tickets. And I kind of caved in, thinking that it wasn't going to sell out, and I'm eternally grateful that they've twisted my arm and made me buy.
I have heard from so many people that have said, we've seen a whole upsurge in fandom. Let me back up 2 steps. Number one, I never try to, or I always try to keep sight of the fact that the slice of fandom that's at any convention, like the slice of fandom that's online to begin with, is just a tiny fraction of fandom.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. Okay. So, if we get caught up in memes and the way things look and all that, that can be a little deceiving. So it's it's the people who can afford to come. It's people who can afford to take off the time. It's people that make it a high enough priority.
Yep.
Outside of the armchair fans that are out there buying action figures and books and stuff. But more and more of those people are coming for their first year. I talk to them every year at Vegas, and you can always tell they're like the Okie in New York City for the first time, craning their neck around and looking at everything. And I say that as a native Okie, but with all due love. But that curve has done nothing but increase since 09. And it's going to be even crazier next. I started calling it 5-0 fever because I started hearing from people around the country. Oh my God, people that were freaking out about a sellout. And then a lot of friends and fans that I know in the UK, in Germany, and a lot of the Asian countries where there's hardcore fandom, and they've got FedCon, they've got the shows in the UK, but there's all these people. It's 5-0 fever. They all say, if there's ever a year I'm going to go to Vegas, it's this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, it's like it's like the British invasion and the German invasion. So it is. It's going to be thick with, I don't want to say rookie fans. We'll have a ton of rookie fans. We'll have a ton of people who are new to Vegas, to the STLV at the Rio, on top of everybody who hasn't been in a year or two, maybe, and they're coming back.
Yeah.
It's just going to be insane good, but insane crazy good. So I'm just, I've got my bits down. I'm still waiting to see exactly what programming I'm doing, but I know, plus the tour, another symbol of this. So the tour this year, we've got double the amount of people that we've had in the first two editions.
That's awesome. I know I shared it the other day and somebody was like, "Oh, you're booked already."
Oh, really?
Yeah,
well, I'd still say shoot. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I started to say shoot an email to Terrace and see. But we've been closed for a couple of months, which is unheard of.
That's
They can still jump on the one-day tour out to the Valley of Fire on Con Day and get a taste.
Well, we've had people that are interested in doing that too, so I'll definitely make a note to send them your way. You have
just
space for that one.
Let them know that we get up and leave at is it 7 or 8 a.m. because we have to get out there and back before it gets hot.
Yeah, definitely.
August in the desert out of Vegas. Yeah,
not a good idea to be out there in the afternoon or early evening.
No.
Yeah. So speaking of the convention, I know you've been attending every one of these in many different capacities. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about any special plans you may have for this upcoming Vegas convention.
Well, if I'm alive when it starts, because I'll have been talking for 10 straight days with San Diego Comic-Con and then Shore Leave before that, which is going to be like Murderer's Row lined up there, a batting order. I'm like I said, I'm still working out the programming with Creation and CBS, exactly what I'll be doing formally, but I'll have my table. I'll be sharing some things I'll be spending some time with Terrace at his booth. I'll be probably doing some taping for my blog and interviewing people, odds and ends. I've really tried to make an effort the last 2 or 3 years not to get bogged down and get chained to the table and all that. And I missed making contacts with some of our actor friends and just some, other business contacts at the time. I don't know. I'm still kind of waiting to see how that's all going to come down. But I will have a Dr. Trek crowdfunder party again for the Con of Wrath. This will be the last year because we'll be coming out hopefully next summer if all falls to finally premiering. And right now I'm really focused on Portal 47 and doing and evolving what kind of one-off events that I can produce on the side like that. Even that are portable, that I could take to different places. But the thing that's special about, forget the size of San Diego or whatever else is going on anywhere, there is, for Star Trek, there is nothing like good old STLV, as the hashtag has evolved over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And there's just nothing like it. So if you're doing anything, if you're working in Star Trek, if you're a huge fan, there's just nothing can compare. And I know they have the satellite conventions around the country. And what's interesting is the Reed Pop Show in New York. This Mission New York is going to be interesting to watch that evolve with a whole new producer behind it. But for right now, it's, and even going back to the old Grand Slam days in LA when I was first moving out here, that was getting so big. And then, Vegas became the mecca with the experience there. And now we're experience less, but it's still continuing on because it's such a great destination for just vacations. That and watching the con creep, of Vegas. It started the Monday after pool party, and then we were having our landing party on Con Eve, and then it's like more and more people and things are taking notes on who's getting where, and and now it's the Tuesday before, well now it's the Monday before, well now it's the Tuesday after, and who's gonna be the last one to drag their butt out of town, and on Facebook and all of that, and that's been bizarre to watch. But anyway, to your question, it's evolving. I'm just going to just tell everybody to stay up with my blog at Trekland and my Larry Nemecek's Trekland Facebook and keep up with the details. But yeah, there's also Adrian Grady is having her pilot project convention not competing at all with STLV. You can't compete with STLV, but she's offering that, and I'm going to be, maybe doing a couple of creative things there too at times. So there's that, and the landing party. Obviously, I mentioned that in passing. Tuesday night at the Masquerade, unless we find an even better place for it. But Tuesday night on Con Eve, John Champion and Mary and I and a few other co-sponsors will be doing our games and trivia and adding into the. I'll try very hard. If I have any voice left, I will try very hard not to lose it all in one night at the damn Masquerade there. But
well, I know you're going to be very, very busy through the entire convention, but rumor has it that on the 4th of August, which I think is the second day of the convention, rumor has it that there's going to be a 3rd anniversary party for the Tricorder transmissions. I hope that you would stop by for a minute if you could.
I will work that into my schedule. Oh, I should mention too, I am going to do a big time cosplay this year.
Really?
Which I rarely do. One year I wore my Dr. McCoy Spock from Star Trek Continues.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And it was very cool. It was the last year they went for the world record costumes, and Gary Berman was about to make a big deal out of me, and then Terry Farrell walked in right behind me. And stole something. If there's anyone better to have your limelight stolen by, it's Terry in her red dress, which is. But very rarely have I don't since for years and years and years ago, and I got ripped off in a costume contest by all the girls half wearing Rocky Horror outfits.
Oh no!
All male judges, but I'm going to do something very special. I say very special, very rare. It's nothing anybody else has seen, I don't think, ever at a Vegas. So I'm not sure what day, but that will happen, or how much of a day, but it's going to be a time investment. I can say that. So we'll see how long I have it on. But
we'll track you down that day.
Yes.
But your party sounds awesome. That's going to be Thursday? The Thursday?
I believe so. Yeah, that's the 3rd anniversary of the first episode we released. So that back in 2013. So it's been quite a while.
No, I'll definitely be there.
Oh, that's excellent. Glad to hear that. It's going to be very, very cool. I think we're all looking forward to it. And thankfully, Heather's going to help me plan the whole thing, I think.
I don't think there's going to be any shortage of things to do.
No.
But
No.
We'll try to squeeze everything in, and we'll make sure and do that, yeah.
Definitely. So you mentioned briefly during your answer to the last question that you have a table in the vendor room, and I wanted to throw this out there for anybody who hasn't been to STLVIA yet or hasn't stopped by the vendor room and seen you in there. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the vendor room experience at the con and what you're planning to have at your table for the 50th.
Well, I'll have my on-speaker CDs, and I know some people roll their eyes and say, "Oh my God, CDs!" But it's good because it's really hard to autograph a download. So, so since the companion went out of print, people walk up with them and they get them on Amazon and eBay and all that, and that's awesome. All the different colored covers, but I wanted something to have. Tangible there. And plus it was serving the public good by getting these damn things digitized and off the cassette tape. But I'll have that. I'll have some photos from some acting that I've done. And mainly I'll be promoting Portal 47. We'll have a drawing, I'm sure, for the end of the weekend. And and I'll have some information about enterpriseinspace.org, which is the nonprofit that I am a speaker for. So, I mean, I tend to not to have a fast moving line. I tend to have like a Max Grudenchik line or a whatever, where people come in, or a George Takei line where people come up and talk for a while. So, I'll be looking forward to that. But that's and Con of Wrath information, and I'll be promoting the Dr. Trek Show crowdfunder party for the Con of Wrath also, for which will probably either Friday or Saturday night. However, I can best dodge whatever it is that I have to be at that night.
Very cool. Do you have a approximate location for your table yet, or have they assigned those?
I have no idea yet. Now this is going to be a different year. This about the con. This is going to be a different year. There's more. I think they're reaching out to have a broader swath of industrial, like non-Trek specific or non-sci-fi specific vendors like they've had in the past. Like service providers of phones or internet or different kinds of things that would interest people of the Trek demographic. Some of those, and I think they're going to have so many more signing people that there'll be the signers, the actors, and others will be split up in different rooms.
Oh, okay.
So it may be a little more complex this year, taking up a little more room. Well, that's what I was told.
Yeah.
So
Did they lease more space in the hotel this year?
I don't know if it's leased more, if they're going to be using some, because some of that, sometimes that gets deceptive. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the back end of the room behind. I get the feeling they're upgrading Quarks, another quantum leap above what they did from the
Oh,
first year
that's
to the
nice.
second. So I hope. And again, I got sideswiped a little bit there. I didn't get into the new Quarks as much as I wanted to last year. So I want to make sure and do that. Yeah, from what again, it's kind of sketchy and it's evolving. But I did get by the offices once and talked about some of the stuff. And I think I'm still in the main vendor's room, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plans out.
Well, when you come back before the con, we can get a last confirmation of where you're going to be.
If I know anything, if I have a functioning brain on the eve of the con. I'm not on autopilot from,
Yeah.
So is there anything that you're really looking forward to at the convention this year?
There's a couple of things I'll bite into this. So it's going to be I've gone blank on who else it is, but I'm really interested to see Kirstie Alley for her first. She was actually at a couple of Trek conventions back in the day. She was at she was at the Ultimate Fantasy in '82 in Houston, and she and Laura Banks, who was the con babe on the Augment crew that had a line, as opposed to the con who didn't.
Yep.
But she was at the Con of Wrath at the show, and we interviewed her, and she was reminding me that she and Kirstie did a convention in San Francisco that year, before it got to the point where she wasn't coming back to be Saavik, so she kind of lost interest in Trek conventions. And I'm just curious to see how she is with being there and what her mood is, and she's had a long, interesting ride in pop culture and in the public face and public eye, so I'm going to be interested to see how she is. I don't know. I'm just I'm going to try to get into the main hall and see some more of the stage stuff, differently. I've offered a lot of different services to creation, so we'll see how much of that plays out. A lot of it's in flux right now, but again, I'm trying not to be chained down to the table so much, and to get out and see more of my friends that are guests and friends that are other vendors and people that work in the industry and the fans both. So I'm looking forward to see how well I make myself not be chained down.
Yeah, I remember swinging by your table a couple times last year, and it was kind of a hit and miss whether or not you were going to be there or not.
That's the big joke. Well, it's the big joke is, Larry's not at his table. But what I try to do is have posted hours. And sometimes they've put the schedules out so late that it's hard to do that. And when it's a tour year, like this year, if they put the final schedule out and get that to us, just a week ahead of time, but I'm out in the middle of Vasquez Rock somewhere when it happens, or whatever, it's a little bit of a scramble. But that's my goal, is to have posted hours. So you'll all see how well I do with that.
Very cool. So any other thoughts on the convention before we move on to another topic?
Oh, no, just buckle up, everybody. It's going to be, I say that, and I'm not saying that to be, a downer or dreading it all. It's like when you're about to step into the world's newest, fastest, craziest, roller coaster, and you're still excited. It's just it's like no STLV we've ever seen before. I
have a feeling you're right on that.
Readings are off the scale, Captain. So, to which I always wanted to say, we'll get a bigger scale, Spock. So, anyway, I can't wait. I just want to survive and enjoy. As opposed to survive and succeed, just survive and enjoy.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of feeling the same way. I think we're all going to survive one way or another, but I think the 5-day extravaganza is going to be overwhelming and amazing, and just a hell of a lot of fun for everybody. I just hope it's not too overwhelming with the huge sellout crowd. Yeah,
I should say too that I know our Geek Nation Tours group has been very international. I mean, Terrace is in Canada, and we've had people from Europe, we've had people from Australia and the Pacific. And there's one of the coolest moments last year. We didn't even have a full tour. We had the one-day tour, but we had a fan from Malaysia and a fan from Indonesia. And if you know your geography, they're like next door, island nations. They're South Pacific, Southeast Pacific. And so they were neighbors, but they didn't know each other, but they both had local clubs back home. And we were in the van going out to Valley of Fire, and I just remember hearing them talk about comparing notes on their local clubs. And it's just awesome to have two people from two different countries like that. And not even the typical, they weren't Brits or Germans or Australians, and talking about it that way. And just listening to them and just stopping and reflecting again how incredible this Star Trek thing is, what Gene hath wrought, and how it's brought so many people like that together. So I'm looking forward. If we're going to have double that this year on the tour, I'll be spending some time, not full time, but a lot of time with a lot of our fans. Some of them will be, some of that group will be veterans, some will be newbies. And I'm just looking forward to that, and just seeing just watching the faces, the Christmas morning faces of some new fans we have too. So, it's all good. It's all gonna be amazing. And someday we'll tell our grandkids about it.
We will. That's a great way to put it. Christmas morning faces. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I had one of those my first STLV.
When was that?
2014. I'm a relative newbie still.
Relatively newbie, yeah.
Yeah, this will be my third one.
It's amazing because I just think of how STLV used to. Well, I remember the first few times people started to call it that because we had Twitter and hashtags became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember when we used to just go, and I would just go cover it for Communicator or, or for all the original StarTrek.com years when Mark Waid and Guy Vardaman and then Tim Gaskell, when we were actually Guy was gone before. That was 99. So Tim had been there a couple of years before the Vegas conventions got going in 01. Which, the first year was slanted Fedora. It wasn't Creation. And they were actually on the anniversary weekend. And we had all these people from foreign countries there. And it was I called it Ranch Con because it was not at people went over to the Hilton for the experience, but it was not at the old Hilton. And that was Jerry Ryan's first convention. And she had that stalker. And they had 4 private security guards hired out as part of her package to be around the room. But it was very flat. It was very, the motel was a flat motel with a couple of years. And Jimmy Doohan was still scooting around on had just started scooting around on his scooter and kind of made people, gasp when they first saw him. But the next year, then Creation jumped in to take the reins of it, more or less. And that company kind of imploded on its own, and they had already reserved a month early. So rather than like the anniversary weekend in September, they had reserved August. And August in Vegas, you can get better deals on facilities. So that's why it's always been and they've never changed ever since then. But I remember when we would just go and cover it. And, I wasn't a guest. We would just go cover it for things. And then .com would cover it. And we would live stream things and back in the day. And it's exploded actually with the 09 movie, social media. Yeah. And I had just started my blog and I was writing about the Comic-Conification of Vegas. Mm-hmm. And first as a cosplay level, and then as CBS was bringing in more licensees to do panels the way you would see at a Comic-Con and licensing and manufacturers promoting their products that way. And it's just gotten, more and more professional that way, and more the level of that end of it. And Gary and Adam's eternal search to find what can we do differently this year as far as the guest lineup. Because, people go several years and they go, okay, well, I've got all my autographs. I've got all the photo ops I need. Yep. But they still find at least a few moments that try to make it special for everybody like that. So, like the year when Mike Westmore did Terry Farrell's DAC spots.
Yes.
And then, what came, and then totally shocked everybody. That was announced. And the unannounced thing was her walking out in her Klingon bride's outfit.
Yes, I think Claire and I cried when that happened. We had a geek girl moment and got very emotional because it was that's a story we will tell forever. Yeah.
And then, that's the thing. The bottom line is when you have that many variables and that many ingredients in play, you just, those unexpected moments will happen on a big scale or just in front of you.
Yeah.
And you can never predict that.
So, Larry, something that we like to do with all of our guests on shore leave is one of our favorite segments called First Cons, where we talk about your first Star Trek convention experience. So, if you have a few minutes to spare, would you indulge us?
Well, you got me thinking about this. I mean, I always think of my first like little convention that I went to was I grew up in Oklahoma. So I was, when the New York cons originally happened, I wasn't a fan until 2 or 3 years into those. I mean, my ninth grade science teacher sent me home to watch Star Trek after school. And so they'd been out for a few years. But I was aware of that, and then I was aware of that, and then the con spreading to L.A. and then Chicago. But the bottom line was those really cool conventions for Star Trek were something that happened in all the big cities, and we were stuck out here in the now we'd say flyover states. But there were sci-fi conventions, and eventually media. There were a lot of nostalgia cons and things, and old time radio and the westerns and all that was happening. And then when sci-fi took off, that kind of Star Trek was already 10, 15 years old, and there was a nostalgia element to it. But I went to a little convention in Oklahoma City that was a lot of elements like that. My mom drove me, and then when I was in college, I went to my first overnight convention that was. It was driven by Star Trek and Star Wars by then, and it had regional authors and artists and no actor type guests, that kind of thing. And what's really scary is by the time I was out where I had independence and income in my own car, I could fly or whatever, and starting to do that. But what really got me just thinking just now was my real my first all Trek convention was. Ultimate Fantasy was the Con of Wrath at Houston Con in '82 that the documentary is about, which is very scary to think about now. Because after that, we would start driving to Kansas City and St. Louis and the Starland conventions in Denver that Steve Walker does that are awesome shows. When they were, Patrick Stewart's first convention was in Denver. It was the week that Heart of Glory aired, and I will never. I was like, I'm here. Forget that first wave of, it's like, I'm sorry I missed out on the original series' wave of fandom, but here I am with Next Generation. I'm going to be here, damn it, to see some of these moments. And that was an awesome, awesome moment. He was totally emotionally overcome when he came out on stage the first time. There were like 3,000, 4,000 people, 5,000 people, and there's tape of it. I mean, there's videotape of it. And he comes out and there's this like just roar, and D. Kelly was like the other main guest that weekend, but there was like this just roar, and you could just feel the emotion and the love wave over him, and he viscerally like took a step or two back, and he said, he said something effective, I don't ever remember having a moment like that on a stage before.
Oh.
And he was just totally overcome, and then a crazy thing he did the first day, because I think he was still fighting himself in his great Shakespearean theatrical, I'm being a wimp for being on TV type thing. He did the whole first day's hour Q&A without a microphone, and he was like projecting to the hall.
Wow.
Gosh.
3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. And then the next day he came back and goes, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I made my statement, but now I'll take a break. I have to show up for work on Monday. So that was a moment. But that wasn't my first one. I have really fond memories of those, but we were going to those while I was madly trying to write the first edition of The Companion. I remember one of those weekends. But it's amazing to me. You made me think of this. My first all-Trek convention was Houston Con '82 and the Ultimate, which actually technically wasn't an all-Trek convention, but the Ultimate Fantasy made it feel like it was.
Wow, that's cool, man. What a great story that was. So do you have any favorite celebrity interactions from any of your convention memories?
Yeah. So twice we were at, Richard Arnold's mother, Denny, used to run the Trek conventions in St. Louis, and they were called Space Trek, Space-Trek, and they always used the arch. What's it called? The big arch in St. Louis, not the Pioneers Arch, the Gateway Arch, as an icon. And one of the years in '86, so Star Trek IV was coming out, and Leonard and Dee and Nichelle were the three guests. And Leonard was kind of off to himself, and they had a press conference on Thursday or Friday. And I'd been working at a University City newspaper in Norman, the Norman Transcript, And I was still a beat reporter, but I was wire editing, and I wasn't entertainment editor yet. But I just remember I'd been out on my own long enough, and I was like, oh my God, I could maybe, if I knew what to do, I could deduct the cost of this. This could be work. And oh my God, I can get a press pass and go into a press conference and be there. And I will never forget it. So this is like the day before. There's a room set aside in the hotel. Here's all the little local pretty boy, TV reporters, 3 or 4 of them from St. Louis, and a few print people there with their pads looking all disheveled because they're just print people. And it's a regular press conference. And I don't know who was coming down or what, but Leonard never did. That may have been part of his deal all along. But there was nobody from the convention there. It was really weird. There was nobody coordinating it or running it. It was just the press was set up, maybe 15, 20 people. And there was like a cameraman and reporter, and then some 4 or 5 times over, and then the rest were print people and me. And again, this is the summer before Star Trek IV, so almost so much of the plot was out, but they were still being cagey about it, the way they would do in the pre-social media days, pre-internet days. So here comes, my favorite guy, who I finally had seen at a convention in 84, because I was starting to think he was going to he would dissipate into the ether, and I'd never see him after 2 or 3 times. But D came down with his dark glasses on and walked into the room, no one accompanying him, no one coordinating, no one greets him at the door. And he walked in, and all these little local pups who don't know Star Trek from, Star Wars or Star whatever, they're all still gacking around. He walked in the door, no one paid attention. There was nobody to introduce him, no one to call attention and call the meeting to order, nothing. And he kind of walked in, and I'm just kind of doing my usual sit back in the corner and watch all this unfold. And finally, I locked eyes with him. I didn't know him that well. I didn't know him at all, really, really. I locked eyes with him, and I said, "It's dead, D." And then he said, "Yeah, it's dead, Jim." And then everybody kind of woke up and went, "Oh, is this somebody? Oh, is this somebody?" And then he kind of walked to the table at the front and sat down like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be here." And everybody kind of went, "Oh." And of course, some of the reporters actually knew that was D after but he had his, those dark shaded tinted glasses. Not shades, but, dark tinted 80s brown glasses. And it started. And then about after a few minutes, Nichelle, who looked like she just got off the plane and had her hair all under a hat because she hadn't had time to fluff it out, but she got down there, she walked in. And then, so by then, there was, again, no coordinator, nobody being middleman. They just went back and forth with the local press. The TV guys kind of asked their stupid, inane, shallow questions, and they're doing their coy little, non-spoilery comments. And then the fan faction in the room, if there was anybody, there was nobody to even go there. And not that I was trying to stir anything up, but I just wanted to know what I could get out of it because I was standing there. So I had my little reporter's notebook and all this, but there was still a piece of me going, am I really going to get away with this? Am I really going to get away with this? Even though I was legit as all get out. And I would like stand on the left side of the room and ask a question, and they would kind of go, even though it was silly because in some places that was already well known, Well, I understand it might have some earth creature in it. I mean, it was just stupid because this was like July before it came out in November, right? And they were already so thrilled with the movie that they couldn't stand it. They were already about to mark the 20th anniversary professionally for the first time, and they were already about to announce Next Generation. That was all in the works, and they were just so proud of this movie. They were busting their buttons about it. And then a few minutes later, after another round of questions, I was taking pictures. So I would take picture from one side, and then I moved to the other side of the room and took pictures from that angle. And while I was over there, it would get dead, and I'd ask another question. And Nichelle was like, she started talking, she goes, aha. And then she looked at me like, you little dog, you switched places. So I'd ask, and I'm like, no, I'm not I didn't say I'm trying to sneak. I was just taking another angle. So anyway, she talked. But that was the whole vibe. And Leonard never came down. That was a really wacky moment, but that's when I was like, oh, okay, I could do this. And then at the Kansas City convention that year, one of the two, it was supposed to have been Harv Bennett and Mark Leonard, and Harv had a heart attack, and Ralph Winter came in his place, and then Mark Leonard, and who played Sarek, and they had arranged an interview for me to sit down, and when I sat down, I said okay, and I started to be all chummy and talky verbally, and he said, well, yes, let's move this along. I need to be somewhere. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got real precise, but I started off somewhere I was smart enough to talk about my theater background. And after a minute or two of that, he turned into like Daddy Mark and was advising me that I should not give up my acting and that I should, And so I asked him a few questions and I said, well, I know your time's, short. And he goes, oh, no, we can keep going.
Wow.
And we had this great conversation. That was the first actual celeb. That was like the oldest. That's a piece of that's on the first on speaker CD that I did. So that was like in years later, I was like, that was cool because on one hand, I went totally on between my background of journalism and my performance background and then knowing Trek. That was the first time I look back now and go, my three-legged stool that has served me so well since then, with all worlds overlapping, where a lot of people sometimes may have one or two of those, but not all three. Shallow interviewers or googie fans or people that don't get how the business works. And being able to combine all that has served me really well. And that's the first time, years later, I went, wow. I went on instinct there, instantly knew the way to bond with him, like you would try to do with any interview subject. But I was somewhere developed the smarts enough to do that. And, training or whatever class or whatever, and then turned what should have been a quickie situation and could have been uncomfortable into something totally different. And anyway, that's a real, so there you go. Those are like some early con memories and I don't think I've said those stories a million times either. So.
Wow. So is that on speaker part of Portal 47 at this point? Can people hear it?
The on speaker CDs I started doing about 4 years ago. That was my first thing out of the box about getting some of this archival stuff out. And so we remaster, clean up. Chris Jones, that's at Trek FM, has helped me with the remastering, and he does the art design for them. And the first one is out of print, and I keep meaning to get started on my list of to-do things is to make them downloadable as they sell out. But volumes 2, 3, and 4 are all themed to, like volume 2 was themed to the anniversary of the Next Gen finale, and then the DS9 finale, and then the Voyager pilot. And again, it's all my long sit-down, not sound-bitey, my long hour and a half interviews with people back in the day in 94 and 95 and 96 and 99 and whatever. So the first one that I did out of the box was called Future Voices Past, and it was all people who have passed away. So the first one has Michael Piller and Bob Justman, and the only actor that I've ever done so far was Mark Leonard, and he was on the first one. And Jerry Fleck, who was the first assistant director for a lot of all the modern series until he died suddenly during Enterprise. And he was Jonathan's first AD on his 2 movies, on First Contact and Insurrection. And great stories, and I wish I'd had him on microphone more, but he had some great stories from shooting First Contact. And so anyway, the first CD, which is not in hard copy anymore, was that one, and I have Mark on that. Again, the only actor. Because I said years ago, these actors are so damn charismatic. You love to go see them at conventions, and they tell their stories. But if you really want to know, it's what drives me in so much of what I do. And I love the actors. But if you really want to know the nuts and bolts of why Star Trek is the way it is and why it was done that way, or what didn't happen, you got to get to the writers and the producers and the designers and and all those people. And then if you want to go to the next level, get to the people who are on stage and in the offices. And if you really want to deep dive this stuff, that's where you go. And from the beginning, when I had the books, and then when I got to manage Edit Communicator all those years, and then we were digging for reference for the fact files. And then in today's modern world, where everybody's just throwing everything on the internet, but we still want cool new stuff, that's where the nuggets are. And now we're coming out of the fallow time, and we'll have some new, yay. But I don't think the first 50 years is going anywhere anytime soon. And that's what's still going to affect, especially people like Brian. That's what's still going to affect Brian and Nick and everybody that's working on the new show, whether they're a welcome old veteran or they're totally brand new. So again, that's what's motivated me over the years, no matter what I've done.
So getting back to the Googie fans that you just mentioned. So let's flip the script a little bit, and we're talking about favorite celebrity interactions. How about most memorable fan interaction moments from your con experiences?
Oh my God. You mean where I've met other fans, or where I was a fan? I felt like a fan.
Well, where you met other fans who may have stood out in your memory.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a sucker because of the way the stereotypes of, one of my soapboxes has been this whole joke about the Geek Girl, not a joke, I don't mean that, but the whole thing about the Geek Girl revolution, the fangirl revolution being new when Star Trek fandom was built by women, you know, in the 70s especially. And I remember watching the Shatner Get a Life skit on Saturday Night Live and thinking, why do they have all these teenage boys, you know, in the audience as the stereotype? Where's all the middle-aged women? That's the stereotypical Star Trek fan. Where, you know, I think that did a lot of, I don't say damage, but I think that permanently altered, you know, the mainstream world's perception, because that skit was so iconic and has been, you know, repeated so often. But wow, I've seen so many. What I started to say was, I'm trying to think of who stood out in my mind, but I'm always drawn when I see, you know, they worried about whether anybody under 30 was going to become a Star Trek fan. You know, so anytime I see young kids, whether it's with their parents or if they're on their own, whenever, you know, we talk about empowering minorities and women, whenever I see, and I don't mean to be a tokenist here or anything like that at all, but whenever I see really strong-willed, you know, women, and so much of this has become a non-thing now. People have, thanks to social media, everybody's become empowered in all their different little ways. Even if it's just, you know, fan sheep becoming, I'm going to take over and do all my own organizing of events and activities at Vegas and other major conventions, you know, where it used to be just people would just trample as a mob from room to room and stand in line all day, and there was nothing else going on. And social media has changed all that. So, but that and the first time people, I love talking to first time. Here's one last year, talking to a guy who is not a young girl or young or anything, or, you know, he was a guy in his 50s, obviously, maybe even 60s, came by my table, had that kind of wandering look, but, you know, seasoned. And so I'm striking up a conversation with him. And I said, is this your first con? The other thing that's amazing to me is how it used to be. I thought the model was you became a fan, you reached out locally, you found your local club or your local convention, even if it wasn't all Trek, you went to that because you would go there, and maybe you knew the people putting it on or running it or whatever, putting it on or running it. Okay. But, you know, you did that, and then you saved your money and you worked your way up, and then you went to a bigger regional con like I did. And then, oh my God, I'm Trek guy, and Mecca, Vegas is the Mecca for me, and I'm going to go there. And it amazes me the last 5 or 6, 7 years, the people that they just leapfrog all that. Maybe it's because of the world we have, and, you know, travel's cheaper and easier. I don't know. But the people who are in Vegas that go from their chair to Vegas in one leap just amazes me. You know, they don't know what their local fandom situation is, which I think they should. Everybody should, you know, have their local groups that you can do and get in and support. But I'm just amazed by that. So this guy, though, he not only, you know, it was not only his first Vegas, it was his first convention.
Wow.
And I said, oh, okay. So how, like your grandkids your kids talked you into watching? He goes, no. He said, oh no, I watched it on NBC in the 60s. And I mean, you know, my reporter's curiosity kicked in, and which happens all the time. And I said, really? I said, you've been a fan since the 60s, but this is your first Vegas? This is my first convention. Really? You know, and he didn't live out on a sheep ranch in Montana. He was near some major city. I said, what was it? What clicked? You know, what turned? Because it wasn't even the 50th year yet. It was the 49th or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said it was Leonard.
Wow.
I said, really? He said, he passed my, you know, as I was kind of saying, like my world shifted a little bit. And I thought, damn it, you know, if I wait any longer, you know, I won't be around or something. He wasn't anywhere, you know, he was not past going at all. He was still very up and going. But the whole thing of Leonard passing made him stop and realize, I should get out and act on I should do this. And again, he didn't just go to a local convention or whatever. He leapfrogged and went to Vegas. But that was amazing. He'd been a fan since the 60s and had never felt compelled to go to a convention, much less Vegas, until Leonard passed. So there's like 5 levels of coolness right there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Leonard inspired him to do that. That's incredible.
Yeah. On top of all the other aspects of his fandom and his own story and whatever. So I don't know. I bet that's a fresher story. I've met so many amazing, awesome fans, and I love going to the regional convention, not just Vegas, But the one thing that it's amazing how you could have been a word guy for 20 years, and the minute you say you're doing a documentary, or the minute you play Dr. McCoy in a fan film that gets a lot of attention,
Yeah.
and the minute where, oh, you're on film, you're real. It's like, yeah, and I wrote all these, I edited this magazine for 8 years, and I wrote, did all this other stuff. But I guess I'm a real person now because I'm in pictures, which is a great lesson to learn, by the way, kids. How that changes things, even though you're kind of like amused by it. But I've been really privileged and lucky to get out to a lot more conventions. A lot of them are smaller things. I'm going to be at 5 libraries across central Michigan in mid-September, after the anniversary, but not too much later. That's like a library tour, but going as those kinds of things have just really been increasing more and more and have been awesome. So there's the big, humongous shows, and then there's the smaller ones. And the smaller ones are great for meet people in their local areas. And just talking to small town people. And this one in Arkansas, in Louisiana, I was at a library. I didn't go to the Lake Charles conventions this year, but one of them helped me get hooked up with a library that had a one-day event. It's called Creative Con. And they were a library trying to reach out to, their pop culture community, a lot of different things. And I had so many people come up and thank me for being there, that I was an LA Star Trek person, who had come to bring that to them locally. And here's a great story. Again, this is fresh. So I had somebody find about 10 of the red cover companions at in a warehouse somewhere. My friend Rusty, who's one of our contributing producers on Con of Wrath, and he's a model maker. And Rusty Harrow, you've seen him out there, and I'll just tell a story on Rusty. He found those for me, so I brought 2 or 3 to have with me at this event because it was a library, and I felt I should be more bookish, and I had these. They're out of print. So I had one. I sold 2 of them, and I sold the second one, and somebody who was there that day had bought one and had it at their table. And this girl, who was a little histrionic, young lady, came back around, and she came back and she came up, and I don't want to say she was screeching, but she was endearing. She was like, "Oh my God, what happened to your book? What happened to your book?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I sold the second one." And she was like, No, I drove an hour and a half just so I could have you sign one for my dad because he's been a fan for 50 years. And she was like in her 20s. And I felt so horrible. And it was like this moment, and she was almost sobbing. And I looked around. I was like, in my customer service, I'm sorry, hon. This was life voice wanted to say, I'm really, really sorry. Maybe we can work on something. And then I had a light bulb and found the guy who is not only one of the guys that works on the conventions I was at in Lake Charles, but is one of my Portal 47 people. And I said, would you mind if I've got some more of these at home? I would get you another one. And I hadn't signed it yet. That's the thing. Would you mind if I have it for her? So I worked that out, turned around, and she had gone. Somebody, this is so cool. So somebody, one of the organizers, knew somebody that knew her. So by this wacky doodle hookup of phones and texting and phoning, they got to her. She came back. She almost had like a smiley cryy meltdown because we had done all this for her, so she could give it to her dad. Carl. His name was Carl. I remember that now. And we took pictures, and she just would not stop hugging me. And so that's a huge story over a little wacky moment that just took over for about 30 minutes at this, medium-sized university city in Louisiana at this one-day community library event. And as much as I always meant to blog that story, and I didn't. But as much as the Comic-Cons and the Vegases and all of that are huge and all that, that's still a kernel of fandom, and that's what it's all about. And here it was not even her, her saga, but here it was, crossing the generations, her dad and her, and you hear from so many fans that had that same kind of story too. So anyway, that was. I'll shut up now. There's 2 more than I thought I had in me, but that's like such a range of. I just love those kind of stories when they happen like that.
That's an awesome story. That's so cool of you to do that for her.
Well, I just if people are fans, you just want to try to do something. And look, Barry, he gave up his book for her, knowing that I'd get him another one. He wasn't married to it, and I signed it for her and for her dad, and I was just glad we were able to do that. But we get all so caught up in the numbers and the dollars and the histrionics and the comment threads and the and even the lawsuits and all the stuff and the deadlines and all that. But that's still what fandom is about. And the cool thing is, even as we're in a world where Comic-Cons are huge and these casts and these shows just roll out, and are we about to have peak Marvel or peak DC, peak Comic-Con even now? Am I coining some phrases here? Maybe I've seen a couple of stories lately where we're wondering if the big era of the big booming Comic-Cons is about to blow itself out. But on top of all that, it was Star Trek that busted this wide open in the 70s. And just in time for Star Wars to take it up to a new height. And then they kind of played, back and forth patty cake for a while. And, and then everything else caught up. And Star Trek almost became a victim of its own success when you had so many series out there. And then things, boomed on the big screen with all the cinematic universes of the comics. But, Star Trek was there at the beginning of that and lit people's imaginations on fire and their loyalties and their ownership of what a fan was like, even more than what a fan usually meant. They weren't just sheep after, Valentino or Bing Crosby or Elvis or Frank Sinatra, or the Monkees or the Beatles. They were, invested in this top to bottom franchise on all these different levels. And nothing like that existed before. I mean, there have been fans who enjoyed reading Sherlock Holmes. There were probably Sherlock Holmes societies and Edgar Rice Burroughs societies and all that. And there had been sci-fi cons, the original first fandom from the 30s onward and the Hugos and all of that. But nothing blew it open. Star Trek, there's that joke, I think maybe Rick Berman made it, about Star Trek and porn built the internet.
Yep.
But what's amazing is if you go back and look at the 70s and the Well Committee and, we'll send it to you for a SACE, a self-addressed envelope. It's like Star Trek there was a passion and a need to do all this stuff before the internet existed. So people were doing it on paper by mail, waiting impatiently for the internet to come along and be invented and catch up in 20 years. And, it's just nothing like Star Trek existed first. And now it's like, oh, yeah, well, now our cast is going to be at Comic-Con. And, we expect it. We'll be in Hall H and have 6,000 people, la-di-da. And there's a parade of them and that people have been in line for since midnight, la-di-da. But Star Trek was and those little stories that I shared with you are just reminders that we cut through all the big stuff and get back to what it's really all about. And I just love it when they happen.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry I've gone on and on and on here, but I haven't talked about this stuff. You guys got this out of me.
That's quite all right. Well, I know we're running a little bit short on time, but it just occurred to me that while I have you, I don't think that we talked about this prior. So I'm not sure if you know this story, but if you would allow me just to really quickly tell you a story about the last convention last year, that it was a special memory to me because it was kind of a sad moment for me at the convention that was made better by somebody. So I think it was the last night of STLV 2015, and I had just gotten through an incredible weekend of meeting some of my now incredibly great friends and people who are podcasting with me. Heather, of course, being one of them. Claire, who couldn't be here tonight. The guys from 5 Year Mission who've been my friends for a couple of years now, and a whole bunch of other people. And it was the final night of the con, and I think we had all made a vow that we were going to stay up as late as we possibly could, and we are going to hang out at the masquerade, and we are going to burn all the midnight oil that everybody had. And the night is dragging on, and people start giving up, and like, we're going to bed. Forget it, we're going to bed. And one by one, everybody starts filtering out, and I'm just resolute that I'm going to stay there. I'm staying at the masquerade, damn it. And I'm going to stay here until everyone is gone. And sure enough, finally, everyone is gone. And there's people there, but they weren't people there. Yeah.
Jeff.
It was horrible. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm defeated. I guess I have to go back to my room now. And the con is officially over for me. I start to walk away, and suddenly, as if you transported down from nowhere, Larry appears in front of me and just strikes up a conversation with me, literally out of nowhere. I don't know what happened. You just happened to be there, And that was the conversation that led to you being on the Tricorder Transmissions back in August, right after the convention. And it was one of those things where I was feeling really bummed out, and it was a conversation that cheered me up quite a bit.
Oh,
Just meeting one more final person. And we hadn't really had a lot of interaction prior to that. I mean, I'd seen you in the vendor room and said hi and introduced myself and stuff, but we didn't really have much of a conversation until that point. I think we talked for a good half hour.
Oh, probably.
Or 40 minutes.
I had no business doing that, but I mean, it was, I'm glad.
No, it was a great memory.
And your laugh was changed forever.
It was. It was. That was great. It was a great moment because it was a kind of a sad moment for me knowing that incredible convention that was kind of almost a life-altering event for me. Weird as that sounds, but I think you guys probably understand that more than most people.
I wrote a blog post like the second or third year of my blog of Trekland, and it was called Vegas in My Rearview Mirror, and it was just like a recap of the convention weekend. But it was as things were starting to shift, and people weren't. One of the things I found out after about 2009, 2010, that aside from just showing up and like, throwing facts at people or digging stuff out of my archives and throwing it at people and having go, oh, that's cool, I never knew that before. But one of the things I realized was the landscape of things was so different between the professional, Hollywood media world and the coming of what the movies meant, and that these weren't these were actors who were doing movies and other things, and how that was different than a series, and the Trek fandom that we'd always known, and how some of these young bucks didn't know pre-next gen fandom, and how that was like. And I started calling it dot connecting, but I was able to start doing that. And I guess this blog post had some of that in it. And so years and years and years go by. And back when the original StarTrek.com had message boards, and then, they went away as things evolved and things come and go. And then a few years later, social media, some of the people that who were the regulars on the old original StarTrek.com, Star Trek logs, I guess here's a shout out for him. A guy wrote to me and he was like, oh, they just like worshiped the days when the old StarTrek.com was going and the way it was done then as a news team. And the coverage of actual, like Dateline news and things. But so they invited me to come on. I just posted something. Hey guys, go over and look at my blog and my videos and my interviews and here's my stuff. And one guy came in and said, this is all like in an old style message thread, right? A forum board. And he's like, is this Larry Nemecek? The Larry Nemecek? Larry Nemecek who wrote Vegas in My Rearview Mirror? And I'm like, yeah, this is like 4 or 5 years later. It was just a thing. It was like a recap of the con weekend. And he said, that like changed my life. And I said that, but he might as well have been saying that. And this guy, I mean, it wasn't weird. He wasn't a stalker. It wasn't, strange. He had a perfectly functional life. But the point is, like, you just never know. And you guys are doing this podcast, and all the people who are doing podcasts and blogs. And one of my things the last 2 or 3 years since I started working on the doc is everybody record your local fandom history before it all passes, because it's been going on now since the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. And, do that. But whatever you do, you just never know how, those drops in the ripple of the pond. You never know what you're going to do is going to affect somebody. Or what you're going to add to their life. So, back to your story. I'm glad we had that time together, per Carol Burnett, and I'm glad that was a fun little moment for you, Jeff. Until conventions, I remember how it was like, the last night of a show, and we'd have strike, and nobody wanted to go back to normal days, or
nope.
Or after any big special event, conventions, the last day of a convention, you'd worked hard on it all year as a runner, organizer, much less as a attending fan. And class reunions, oh my God, that was the worst. There were 2 really big ones that I went to. Nobody wanted to go. Nobody would ever get out of the pool or the jacuzzi. It was that same feeling. You just don't want, if I get out of here, then it's over until whenever. So I totally get the moment. And that's why I was laughing about con creep getting bigger and bigger. But anyway, I'll just say you're welcome.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that. And before we wrap up the show, we've been going for quite a while now. I just wanted to ask you really quickly: do you have any tips for anyone whose first con will be STLV 50?
Wow. Well, if you're coming to this one, like I warned you not to start with, but so many hundreds apparently ignored my advice, and good on them. I would just say, don't be fooled into thinking it's all about, I kid and I say the sheep fans, but I'm going to say, don't be fooled into thinking it's all about what's on the printed program. Although there's certainly moments that you want to do and be there for. And you will certainly, if you've paid for those photo ops and autographs, you will want to do that. But just remember that the coolest thing about, and even if you've gone, especially if you've gone to local conventions, and maybe that's all you got out of it, aside from your 1 or 2 friends you went with. But if you're on your own, you won't be on your own for long, because standing in line or sitting in your chair time after time, you're gonna forget what a universal language Star Trek is. Even if somebody's a Niner and somebody else is an original series person and somebody else, loves Spot and somebody else loves Porthos, or whatever. You're going to have that common language and bond. We say this on the tour all the time. You can come in from different countries and within a few hours realize you're all in one big family. And it's that same old fan appeal that everybody's talked about for 30, 40 years. There are no strangers in fandom, much less Trek fandom. And the attitude of Star Trek transcends the fans. And I've had people in other sci-fi and comics fandoms. I knew this, but I always get the validation. How they talk about Star Trek fandom is the nicest. And I've had some people kind of sneer that. And you go, oh, Star Trek fans are the nicest fans. So-and-so fans would never put up with this, or they would never do this. But it all generates from Gene and the message and why people, their core interest, from most people, their core interest in the positive future and all that we all know so well. But if you're a first-timer, that's all going to happen. Just be awake, be alive and aware of how it'll be, so much stuff will be off the grid, and be open to that. I don't know how you can not be open to it, but it'll be all over you. And and stop and remember that a lot of the best moments aren't planned. And if you have no concept of this, within a day you will totally get it. So that's my advice to people is not don't get your panties in too much of a wad if things go off the schedule a little bit, because it's just going to be an awesome weekend. And and you set aside enough time and you paid enough to be there, you're going to be soaking it all up anyway. And if anybody hears this, let me just say this too. I hope anybody in your audience tonight that is hearing this, hopefully some first timers, please come by and tell me that, because I seriously, guys, you guys, since you focused on conventions, I haven't talked on these topics or told some of these stories ever in ages. So I'd really like to hear from people at Vegas, or sooner if you cross paths with me. But I'd really like to hear from people that heard this, and I'd like to hear how my advice went down. I think it's what anybody would tell newbies. I'd like to hear people that were able to take the advice to heart and had a moment of their own on their first time.
I don't know about you, Heather, but I don't know if we ever need to ask that question again after that perfect answer.
I agree. That was a great response.
We're just going to edit that into every Shore Leave episode from now until the end of time.
Oh, and never wear anything purple.
There's no purple in Star Trek.
Well, except for Troy dresses, but which is why that's a moot point. Something stupid. But no, guys, this has been so awesome. I've really enjoyed going where I rarely podcast or interview before. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by the show. This has been a really incredible night for both of us, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
No, don't go down there. You're going to have plenty other awesome days in your life, Jeff.
Always, I have before, and I'm sure we'll have more the next time you're back on the show.
Yeah. And I will just say, if you've got listeners that aren't STLV bound, I've got a whole, like I said, I have a huge calendar this year, which is very awesome and privileged to be part of. So look on LarryNemecek.com, and my calendar list is up there, and there's events big and small, and I'm trying to get more to the east and the northwest. I mean, the east and the north.
You need to come to the east.
Yeah. So I'm going to be, I'm looking, New York is in flux, New York City, but I'm supposed to be at a new convention in Albany called Northeast Trek in November.
Oh.
Well, if you're going to do New York City, you have to tell me ahead of time so that I can be. I'm only an hour away by train, so you have to tell me.
Okay. Well, I don't, if you're not already planning to be there, but
I
don't think it'll be a secret. So
okay,
that'll be great. That would be great. Yeah.
So where else can people find you on the internet if they're looking for more Larry?
They're not ducking it by now. So LarryNemecek.com, which is going to get a facelift this summer, here in the next month or so, is a good hub. And Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Facebook. Although I have a Facebook page for the Con of Wrath and a Facebook page for Portal 47, the public page. And I have a page for my Trekland Trunk, which is where I get a lot of archival stuff out and some old retail stuff from the 70s and 80s and get it out and share with people. I mean, they're sold off, but it's my non-slimy way of just putting it out there. And if you're a collector, then it's there. And if not, I'm not going to talk about it otherwise. And at Larry Nemecek on Twitter. And what am I thinking? I'm going to one of my plans for this year is I have a YouTube channel, but it used to be my free server instead of being a YouTube channel. And I'm going to rebrand that for one of my names. But I'm going to launch an Instagram. I'm finally going to do Instagram. I've been wanting to do a third social media, so I'm going to do that here in the next month. And so, yeah, at Larry Nemecek on Twitter and Trekland on Facebook, Larry Nemecek's Trekland, and LarryNemecek.com is good as any.
All right. Thank you once again, Larry, for being here. This has been really, really fun.
Yep.
Oh, it's been fun. Yeah, and good to hear from you both.
Yep, we'll be seeing you soon.
Okay, Heather, it's counting down. I hear it's under 90 days.
Yeah, I think we're 83, maybe something around there.
Heather's keeping count.
We'll do when it gets to 47 days. Do a big whoop.
I will.
All right, everybody out there, stay tuned. Heather and I have some listener questions we're going to go over in a few minutes, so we'll be right back with you. All right, as promised, Heather and I are back with some listener questions from the Facebook group. Heather, are you ready to dive into these?
I'm ready. We got a lot of stuff to go over.
Yes, we definitely do. So let's see. Our first question is from Robert, and Robert says, what type of power/energy bars, reusable water bottles, and power bricks for your phone do you recommend? I have things that I can add into this, but Heather, why don't you go first?
Okay, because I'm relying on you to do the power brick for your phone part. Because I just take my charger, and I do have a little extra battery one for iPhone, but I'll let you handle that one. So power energy bars, I will throw out our little STLV bod tag that we're using on Twitter to just talk about what we're doing to shape up for the 50th. There's a group on Facebook too that is 50 by 50th. And that's our little group on Facebook. Anyway, so I eat a lot of protein bars. The only thing for me with the power energy bars is that I try not to eat added sugar. Mm-hmm. So the things that I am eating, other people may not want, vice versa. But I really like the Think Thin bars I've found. They're high protein and they have very little sugar. And good on the calorie bars, but there are so many different power energy bars out there to try. Have you ever tried any?
Power bars or the particular? So, yeah, you know what? This question is going to force me to be a little bit more personal than I usually like to get on these things. But Robert, you're twisting my arm here. But this may be revealing a little bit more about me than people might want to know. But I guess a lot of my friends on Twitter know about my weight loss that I went through many years ago. So I lost about 90 pounds, and I've kept it off for, almost 9 years now. Wow. Going on 10, I think. So I went through a complete lifestyle change, and part of that was almost becoming obsessed with my fiber intake. As horrible and as old fuddy-duddy as that sounds, I became obsessed with getting my full day's fiber every day. Now, say what you want about it. It's been my mantra. It's been my thing for many years, and I've never stopped doing it. So when I go out to STLV, I always buy a box of, and you're going to laugh, Fiber One bars. I kid you not. And that way, because, the thing is, I usually do a lot of my fiber stuff in the morning for breakfast. That's where I usually get the bulk of it. And when I'm at the convention, I can't do my normal breakfast regimen for the most part. Yeah, so I have to find other ways to feed my obsession, for lack of a better word. But so, usually I buy a couple boxes of the Fiber One bars, like the granola bars. And they also have these really good cookie and fruit snack bar things. Okay. So I usually get a mix of those. So if I'm in the mood for something sweet, kind of snacky, I go for the cookie bar or like the lemon square. And if I'm, just in the mood for like something like a normal snack, I'll just go for the regular granola E1 that's really not too sweet. It's more of like kind of a brandy sort of gritty taste.
Yeah, it really comes down to personal preference
It
on what
does.
you like out there. I've had, I think, the Nature's Own granola bars. I've had,
the ones that spray crumbs everywhere when you break them.
I think so. Yeah. Lara bars, Cliff bars. I've cycled through.
Cliff's not bad.
A lot of them, and they're all great choices, and they're all something that you can buy at home and then pack in your luggage and have it there when you get there if you're not able to go to a grocery or anything like that. I also snack on apples, which
those are good.
It just whatever you can think of that will survive in your luggage, unless you're going to a store when you get there, maybe throw into your bag. And then the water bottles. In my daily life, I use these glass bottles. Oh. I get them at Target, Zulu. They're called Zulu. And what I like about them is that the top is not like a straw or anything. It's just, you can drink out of it like you would drink out of a glass. I find that when I'm working out, it's harder for me to drink out of a straw, like a Camelback bottle. Than to just be able to gulp it down. And I like the glass bottles more. But honestly, when we're there, I think the plan is just to go to the store, Costco, whatever, and just get like the $3 pack of 24 bottles of water.
That's probably what we're going to do.
I would like to, I don't like plastic bottles. I don't like creating that waste, but unfortunately, I think this is probably a time when I will have to do that. Any insight on the power bricks for your phone?
Yeah, I do have some insight on the power bricks, but I'll really quickly second your vote for glass water bottles. It's for as I'm concerned, the far superior to plastic and or metal. I know they have those special plastic bottles that they say don't have any of those horrible chemicals in them anymore, but I still don't trust them.
Yeah.
And glass, definitely. And I will make one more recommendation for water bottles, because carrying a bottle around with you all day at the con can get kind of annoying. Most of us carry like a little backpack or something. But if you're going to buy a water bottle specifically for use at the convention, try to find one where the cap has like a clip on it, so that you can either clip it to your belt, or if you have a backpack, you can clip it to like the key holder inside your backpack so it doesn't tip over and leak all over your cool merchandise that you bought. Right?
No.
Because that sucks. That happened to me once. Trust me on this one. You do not want soaking wet Tribble and Power Bar in your backpack.
No, definitely not. And the nice thing, so realistically, you could bring your own water bottle, and then they have water stations in all of the main rooms. Does Creation like you to fill your 20-ounce water bottle with their water? Who knows? Probably not. But the water's there for us, so I say consume it any way that you want to. And it's a good way to stay hydrated. I find that I don't carry a water bottle on me while I'm there. And so I wind up being super dehydrated because I'm drinking like a fraction of what I typically drink in a day. It's so dry
there.
Yeah. And even though like the convention hall is smoke free, anytime you have to walk to the room, you still have to go through the casino. And so you're getting that smoky vibe too. Yep. And that's my goal. Yeah. My goal this year is to have a big supply of water. I attempted drinking from the sink in my room last year. I do not advise that stuff.
Oh, it's the most sulfury water ever.
Yeah, it was not something I want to do again. So, maybe if anybody has friends that would be willing to pick up water for you too, or you can pay a little bit extra for water down in the store. I think there's a couple stores that have bottles of water.
Very good. Very good. So getting back to the power brick question for Robert. Yes, I do have some recommendations. So I usually swear by a brand called Anker or Anker, Anker. They have some very good deals on those on Amazon. tons of different capacities. So it really depends on what type of phone that you're bringing. So the signal on the convention floor I found to be rather good. So they've run whatever cellular repeaters they need to through the convention area so that your battery isn't getting drained by lousy signal.
Yeah.
But as Robert alluded to with his question, you're going to be taking a lot of pictures. You're probably going to be texting your friends that are at the convention to coordinate things. You're probably going to be posting to social media a lot, maybe making phone calls back home. So yeah, your battery is probably going to take more of a hit than it would on a normal average everyday scenario. So bringing some sort of backup juice with you is probably a good idea, because even having a little charger on you, there's not a lot of outlets that I remember seeing littered around the convention.
No.
And most of the time, when you do find one, other people will already be sitting next to it.
Yep.
And charging. I remember seeing some in the Quark's bar where people had their phones plugged in. So I would probably recommend a good balance between capacity and weight and size, because you can get some ones that are absolutely ginormous, 20,000 milliamps and higher, but they get big and bulky and tough to carry. And, you don't forget you have to actually have a little cable with it if it doesn't have one built in to hook up to your phone. And, trying to keep your phone in your hand while you got the brick hanging off, that can be a bit of a pain in the butt too. So you may not want to go for one of the gigantic ones. One that's at least, say, twice the size or 3 times the size of your phone's internal battery is usually good to give you a charge and a half, So that's usually what I would go for. You can probably catch a good quality Anker, or even a Mophie if you feel like spending a little bit more. Yeah. You can get a Mophie brick, and you should probably be able to get one for like $30, $40, a decent quality. But don't skimp on the price, because if you buy the cheap ones, typically they don't hold nearly what they're rated to hold. Yeah. So you don't want to get out there and save $5-10 on it, and you get out there and find out that it's only going to give you like a quarter of a charge or half a charge because it's a cheap piece of junk. So
yeah,
definitely spend a couple more bucks and go for one that has a good rating. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, I had a Mophie case a couple years ago for my phone, and then I think last year I have just a small charger. It's maybe the size of a pack of quarters. Yep. And I do have to carry my lightning cable around to connect it, but it's small enough that it'll, fit in my purse easily. And I when I needed breaks, I would go up to the room and just charge my phone for a while. But yeah, both of those were good. I don't remember what the brand name of the little one I had is, but I got it on Amazon and it was less than $20. So they're out there. Most definitely. So I think actually that's kind of a good segue. When we were talking to Larry about the vendor's room experience and what we could expect from him, he mentioned some things I had not heard about vendor's room setup and possibly there being more space. And typically a lot of the actors have booths in the vendor's room, but it sounds like that may even change, and they may have a room for those people. But what I thought was interesting was mentioning having more like corporate entities in the vendor's room, like that phone.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
No, we, definitely that different types of technology cater to Star Trek fans. And I know that they did the X Prize for the tricorder they're developing. They had an X Prize booth, I think 2 years ago, and you could go and do a picture and they would stick a little thing on it. But it was basically for the whole X Prize competition and building this tricorder. So that caters to us as Star Trek fans. So, we were into that, but like, I really didn't understand why there was a cell phone case vendor or...
Dude, Heather, let me tell you, that was the first thing that popped into my mind when Larry brought that up, was that really annoying cell phone case guy. Because the guy, I was walking by, I had no idea who this guy was, but he was a vendor at that cell phone case / battery table. And he's like, "Oh, hey," and I had my phone in my hand at the time. And he goes, "Oh, hey, what kind of phone do you have?" And I turn and I look, and he literally grabs the phone out of my hand and starts trying to put another case on it and selling me a case.
God.
I'm like, "Dude, seriously? Did you just grab my phone out of my hand? You don't do that."
No.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's the last thing we need is more of those kinds of people."
Oh, that's the worst thing to do to our kind.
Yes, you do not take my technology from me.
Yeah, aside from it just being obnoxious in general. I mean, it's like those kiosks at the mall where they try to sell you the nail stuff or whatever.
Oh, horrible.
I really hope that we don't see too many of something like that does not have some connection to Star Trek. At least that the cell phone cases had Star Trek stuff on them.
I don't think they had any of those.
No, it was like a Verizon kiosk was set up in the vendor's room, and it's the first time that I've ever seen anything like that, and it was very distracting and just very distasteful. So I'm interested to see what is going to happen this year, and how they're going to.
I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, if we find out any more information, we will definitely keep everyone up to date on that. But down here, it was Neil that was asking about the vendor's room, what's available in terms of merchandise, roughly how many of the smaller stars tend to sign there.
So many questions from Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. We love the questions. And honestly, the thing about this convention I'm finding is that I can't say, well, based on years prior, it's going to be like this. Because based on years prior, the Star Trek convention never sold out.
No.
So yeah, with hearing about possibilities of splitting the rooms up, I don't know what's going to happen, because typically there are, I don't know, like at least 10 different booths with some of the, I don't want to, the B-list stars, the ones that just aren't as in demand. And then people like Richard Hatch, he had a booth for several years. Yeah, I'd say there are like around 10 to 12 of those typically.
Yeah, typically. And some rotate in and out on specific days. Some may not be there every single day. So definitely check the con schedule to see, if someone that you're looking for that is going to be in the vendor room, if they're announced to be in the vendor room, just make sure that you're looking to see what days they're actually going to be there. Because, and also remember, people that are in the vendor room, this is a really good thing to think about. They also will usually have panels that involve those people. So there will be times where they will not be at their table. So if you go there specifically looking to see someone, make sure you look at the panel schedule and see if that particular person is in a panel or doing a professional photo op, because some do cross up the pro photo ops with table appearances. So I know Joan Collins, I think, was one of those that kind of crossed up both. I remember she was only there for a very short time in the actual room.
Yeah, I remember kind of looking over and seeing her, and that's about as close as I got, because honestly, I don't think I sat on her panel, and I did not do the photo op because her photo op was only with Shatner.
Right.
Which would have been, City on the Edge is one of my favorite, maybe possibly the favorite of Star Trek episodes for me. But I don't know. I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't do it. Didn't sit on it. I feel kind of bad about that. But, at this point, all those people plus the other actor vendors who were there may be in a totally separate room. So I guess we'll see. And, the lines, sometimes there have been pretty long lines, but a lot of them, it seems pretty steadily they're accessible. There may be one or two people waiting to talk to them.
But it kind of depends on who it is, too.
Yeah. I know, like when I got George Takei's autograph years ago, we were in the front of the line, but the line wound up being very large, snaking throughout the vendor's room. Whereas like Connor Trenier and Dominic Keening, who are usually sitting together, they're not usually overwhelmed.
True. Yeah, I remember Harlan Ellison had a ridiculously long
gosh.
line in the vendor room when he was there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was people. I remember people were in that line for well over an hour
I believe it.
waiting to get to him, and I think he actually just got up and walked away at one point. But yeah, so typically though, Neil, the people, like Heather was saying, the people in the vendor room, for the most part, because they're there, most of them are there for the duration of the con or for multiple days, and they're there from almost opening to closing, depending on the age of the person in question. Some of them may come down later and leave a little earlier, but if you go in and they have a line, chances are if you go back in an hour or so, there won't be a line for those people. So, I mean, frankly, I remember, and this is actually kind of a sad memory in a way, but I remember the first couple of times Craig and I went around to see Grace Lee Whitney. She had a line, and we're like, well, we'll come back later. And finally, another day, we came back and she had no line at all. And we talked to her for, God, it must have been a good 15, 20 minutes. Just chatting, and she was telling us all about her life and her past, and fighting and overcoming addiction, and all the programs that she worked with, and it was actually amazing. It was really, really amazing that you can have those kind of conversations with those folks.
I hope that they're still as accessible, even if they're in a different room. I mean, I imagine they would just have those people there, and then the other people would kind of funnel in and out. I just started reading her autobiography, and I made it through the first chapter and had to take a break because the story that she recounts of some abuse, rape that she experienced while working on Star Trek, and then her being written out of the show. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Horrible.
And I now regret, kind of like Larry's story where he was telling us about the fan who was compelled to go after Leonard died. I very much regret not having gotten a photo op with her or the chance to talk to her, because now she's gone.
Yeah, she was such a sweetheart too.
Oh, I know. She was there for Mark and Amy's wedding, and how cool is that? But it's definitely take advantage while these stars are here with us, and ask yourself, are you going to regret it when they're gone? And take the opportunity to talk to them, to get even if it's their autograph, because it's so important right now.
I agree. And something, Neil, I don't know Neil yet, but I know I've been talking to him online, and I know we're going to be meeting up at the con. So I'm looking forward to meeting him, because I don't know his history of going to different types of conventions, but I know a lot of other conventions aside from STLV that I go to. The celebrities who are sitting in vendor rooms have handlers that sit with them that kind of shoo you off and don't allow you to hang around asking a lot of questions. But one of the great things about the vendor room in STLV is most of them there do not.
Nope.
They're usually sitting by themselves, hanging out. They take the money from you directly. They sign your stuff. They hand it to you. You don't have to worry about someone telling you what you can and can't say or what you can and can't do. So the only ones I've seen that had them were some of the, I guess some of what they consider the quote unquote bigger. So like Joan Collins had one. I know Garrett Wong has people that sit in his booth with him.
Yeah.
And but other than that, most of them don't have anybody with them. So you don't have to worry about some of the stress that comes with seeing someone at a table at normal everyday conventions.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that little bit of a benefit.
Yeah, it's great. And you have a better chance of having them personalize something, an autograph. I did
not
that.
Charge you extra for it.
Yeah, seriously. I did that with Armin a while back, and had him autograph something to my fiance, and he wrote that on there, and we had a nice chat. And he's like, he couldn't be here this year to meet you, and he's like, well, bring him back next year. It's just it's so much fun, and it's such an easy way to connect with these people, because they are people, they are humans like you and I, and you get to just chat like buddies. So definitely take advantage of that when you can.
Totally. So let me roll real quick back to Neil's first question, I just wanted to. I had some strange observations about this
Yeah.
over the last couple of years. So he asked what kind of merchandise is available in the vendor room. Now, I remember thinking to myself, both times that I went to STLV in 2014 and 2015, that the spread of merchandise in the vendor room was a little strange to me because you have some tables that are what you would expect, dedicated vendors who are selling 95% Star Trek stuff. You know, you got the Roddenberry.com booth. You got a couple of really heavyweight toy vendors there who've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of figures available across all different types. And then you had like almost people like you'd see at a flea market. You know, people who have like old collectible Trek glasses from what was it, Taco Bell or Burger King or one of those places, and like used magazines and used books and older merchandise that wasn't new.
Yeah.
And then you had people who were selling stuff that was completely unrelated to Star Trek in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, jewelry. There are two jewelry vendors there.
Yep.
There's a Native American jewelry booth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great. They're really nice people.
They
All of
are.
these vendors are really nice. I bought several pieces from the one gem vendor, and I wish I knew all of their names, but I don't. Yeah, it's really a hodgepodge of everything, but that I really enjoy because then you can find obscure things.
True.
And I like to give obscure gifts. So it helps because I can, okay, number one, if you haven't been before, you're going to walk through the vendor's room like, I don't know, 5 to 10 times a day, every day.
Pretty much.
There's a lot of stuff there to look at, but also it's just your friends may be there. It's something to do. You're going to run into a celebrity, etc. So expect to be there a lot. But the nice thing is that I keep going back and like going to the different vendors that I may not have spent time at before and perusing what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find some really great stuff. There's one booth that does replicas, prop replicas.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Dr. McCoy's medical kit. It's just like, oh, it's so cool. All sorts of stuff. So yeah, I almost want to say it's like you can find anything there.
Yeah. And multiple costume vendors, like replica costume vendors. So if you want to get your, quasi-authentic Star Trek uniforms from any genre, you'll be able to get them there for the most part.
Most definitely. Now, I will say this with the vendors that are there. So I have 2 dresses from Anovos. I speak very highly of the quality of my dresses, but they have had some issues. They've gotten really big, and so they've had some trouble meeting certain deadlines.
Yeah, fulfillment is a problem for them.
Yeah, and communicating those issues. So I have found that the selection of merchandise they have there available for you to purchase at the convention is pretty small.
Yep.
So definitely, maybe they'll be better prepared this year.
Hopefully. So buy early. If you're planning to buy anything from them, buy early.
Don't even buy it now. Honestly, I think they're so back ordered on everything that you're not going to get it before the convention. Unless it's something very small, like Pips. But there's another man there, and I know his name, and I can't think of it. It might be Ivan. And he has some screen-used costumes that he brings every year. Enterprise jumpsuit, I think he's had. So he's there. And then you can find, there's a corset. He makes corsets and corset dresses vendor. And he has them in different Star Trek material pattern. I've got both a corset and a dress from him. And then a lot of the vendors just have like the standard Halloween costume version of like the Into Darkness dresses. So it's really kind of all kinds of quality. So if you want to wait until you get there, you may possibly be able to find something. It depends on what you want. But a lot of people like to plan ahead. And when we do our cosplay episode here soon, we will have a list of different vendors that we recommend that you can buy stuff from.
Excellent. So you also, of course, have 5-year mission in the vendor room.
Yep, they will be there with help
Certainly
this year, thankfully.
Yeah. So let's see. What else did Neil ask? Oh, can you move around fairly freely? Well, it depends on what you mean by fairly. And it depends on the time of the day. It depends on whether or not there's a big panel going on.
Or letting out.
Letting out.
Yeah.
Oh, what a nightmare.
Yeah. It's really the worst time to be in the vendor's room is when a big panel has just let out, because people that's where they go.
Yep.
And so, yeah, definitely most of the time, otherwise it's been pretty good. And if they do move some of the vendors or some of the actors into another room, that'll be even more space. The vendor's room is pretty large for people who have not been there before, but sometimes it can get a little claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I find it really easy to walk around in there and feel just fine.
Yeah, the hallway gets a little cramped too.
Yep.
Especially when the panels from both rooms let out, they people just flood out into the hallway. So try to pay attention to when panels are going to be ending.
Yep.
If you're going to be planning to make a move to go from one place to another, or if you're, God forbid, trying to get to the bathroom.
Oh, no. There are plenty of bathrooms, but I still, when I think about what's coming, I'm just a little apprehensive of those. It's really those moments specifically, because they're already very overwhelming and very overstimulating. So I can only imagine what it will be like. I advise people to maybe leave your panel a little early or sit in your seats for a while.
Yeah, let it die down.
Yeah, just avoid that. I think it's funny that Neil asked how many thousands of dollars will I need to bring?
As many as you possibly can.
Yeah, okay, so this will be my eighth year. 2009 was my first year. So this will be my 8th consecutive year going. And the amount of money that I've spent has really depended on the experience I was having. I used to buy more photo ops and autographs, and I don't do that anymore. But I still set back at least $1,000 just for your general convention costs, like food.
Yeah, don't underestimate the food cost. And please, God, do not. If you're planning to go to Masquerade, and I do not underestimate the alcohol cost, because it is so expensive to drink there.
It's expensive, and there have been issues where they have dishonestly kind of rounded up the tab or not given back the correct change. So, that's it's just a big wait and see for me, because we know that the population at the Masquerade is going to be incredibly overwhelming. Maybe there will I remember it's usually like Saturday night, late night, when everybody's done for the day and they've been out to dinner, and they just all amass at Masquerade.
Yep.
And so the entire bar area is full, which is small to begin with. And then it just stretches out beneath the bar on the casino floor.
Yeah. Probably going to be monumentally difficult to get drinks at the bar too.
Yeah. There are other bars available. There is a liquor store right next to the Masquerade that you can go in and buy something. And of course, we always recommend just keeping some stuff in your room and popping up and down. Now that gets hard, because you don't really want to leave your friends when you're having fun.
True. Flask.
Yeah. But yeah, it just depends. You can easily drop like $800 on photo ops and autographs.
Yes,
and then
you can. And merchandise, yeah.
Yeah, and then, another grand on merchandise. And then all of your food and alcohol and anything else if you're going, outside of the Rio to experience Vegas. There's all of that world out there. So my advice is just save as much as you can. Save at least $1,000 if you can. However, there are many people in our group that go on a budget and have budget ideas.
Oh yeah.
So if we're able to get to talk to that, get on that subject in the next 3 months, then we will definitely do that too.
One more quick bit of advice on merchandise, not specifically just for Neil, but since this topic has come up, and I don't think we've mentioned this, or maybe somebody mentioned this on a prior shortly. Sorry, my memory's a little bit foggy on what everybody said, but if you are in the vendor room and you are looking at a piece of Trek merchandise, and that piece of Trek merchandise is new, or has been recently released, or is currently being produced, chances are it is more expensive and in the vendor room than it would be on, say, Amazon.com.
Yeah.
So please, I beg you all, if there's something like some new figure or a ship or something that you want, take a second to just pull out your smartphone, go on Amazon and look up the price. There were things that I almost bought at the con, and thankfully I looked them up online and they were $10 to $20 cheaper sometimes.
Yeah, and I can only defend brick and mortar vendors and their price. I used to manage a comic book store, so comic books at the comic book store, are a little higher than they may be on Amazon, and that's for a reason. But I also, consider your suitcase and what you have to take home. And in that case, I know that I really wanted to buy Juan Ortiz's book of art. It's the collection of his covers. It's a hardcover book. He was there 2 years ago signing, and the book was $50, and that included his autograph. So that's pretty good. I came home and I was like, I really wanted that book, and it was on Amazon for $35. So I didn't want to get it there because I was going to have to lug it home, and it was heavy, and I already had too much stuff. So that's what I like to think about, is the stuff that you can get at home, or if the vendor has a website, you can get their business card and then order it when you get back.
True indeed.
And then I will say too that on Sunday, a lot of the vendors will do deals with you, since they haven't, haven't sold certain things. Just be nice, and there's no harm in asking.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess since we're on the topic, one final note about this: if by chance you do buy something there that's too big to fit in your luggage, or ahead of time it's too big to fit in your luggage, conveniently in the hallway outside the convention, there's a UPS store right inside the building. So you can mail stuff home to yourself. Now, it'll cost you something, but they do sell little boxes, and they do sell little tape and little labels, and they'll be happy to sell you all that stuff and let you box up your stuff and send it home. Or conversely, if you felt like shipping your clothes or your cosplay stuff home, you can do that as well. And I believe you can also ship yourself things to the hotel prior to you getting there, and you can pick it up in the UPS store if you want to save yourself from having to lug it all on the plane with you.
Yep, that's what I was going to say, is that there have definitely been recommendations to mail you your cosplay or anything like that.
It's a good idea, because you never know if your luggage is going to get lost.
Oh, no, knock on wood, no.
Or smashed, or if the TSA is going to open it and try your costume on.
Oh my gosh. So they opened my luggage 2 years ago when I was in Augment, and I had a mechleth in my bag.
Oh,
and it was a prop mechleth. It's not sharp, but it's definitely a weapon. And they opened it up, and I had written on a piece of paper, "This is not a weapon. This is a prop." And, nothing came of it, but I had the little notification in my bag when I opened it that they had looked at it.
Thank God.
So yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to say about Vendor's Room?
No, I think that's all I can muster for now. If we want to move on to the next question.
Yeah. So since we were just talking about the bar, Patrick, who is my co-administrator of the group, asks, what time does Masquerade close?
Very jokey question. I'm sure he was kidding.
I know. I love it.
That.
But yeah, since we brought it up and everything else, people are there uh, all night long. So the bars are open. Don't worry. People will probably be there at 5 a.m. Still talking from the night before.
I wouldn't doubt it, but be forewarned that if you are that brave and you're going to stay there that late, then your next day will likely be ruined.
Yes.
Or at least the early part of it, because let me tell you, I think all of us have talked about this many times. Being up till 4:30 in the morning every night really takes a lot out of you.
It does. Unfortunately for me, my pattern the last 2 years has been stay up until 3 or 4, wake up at 7.
Yep, me too.
That's my weekly schedule. I'm up pretty early, so I just kept waking up very early. And one morning I woke up and I was still drunk, I think.
Nice.
That's terrible to admit. Sorry, Mom. I think it was from the first night. And so my goal this year is to do what I always recommend, which is have a drink, have a glass of water.
That never works out.
Then have another drink.
Never works out.
It never works out. There is an overwhelming sense of reunion the first night that we're there, and people are sometimes putting drinks in your hand and you don't realize how many drinks you've had.
Oh, yeah.
So that stuff happens most definitely.
Yeah. Be real careful with that.
Okay. There were so many questions that everyone asked, and I don't think we're going to be able to get to every single one. Let's see. How about John Krikorians? He has some notes that he got together that he sent to us, and they're really great notes with lots of good ideas that are pretty on par with what we've been talking about, like with what kind of energy protein bars to buy. He has some options for grocery stores in Las Vegas. There's Smith's, which is pretty much a Kroger's, a Trader Joe's, an Albertsons, a Vons, which is apparently Safeway, and Sprouts and Whole Foods. So there are a lot of options if you're able to grab a cab or an Uber and pop over to a grocery store to get stuff. It looks like there's a lot of options here. I shop at Sprouts personally. So that's great because I could go and get my energy bars there and fruit and everything else. And we were talking the other day about different places to go. There's the little hall con that we've been talking about, which technically now it's not in the hall con, since Creation announced everywhere that they will not be allowing anyone past those checkpoints that they've had. So people who don't have tickets are still going to try to come and do other things outside of the convention and then come hang out with us at night. So I did not realize that there is a pinball museum in Vegas. Have you ever been to it?
Yep.
Did you know about it?
Sure
Oh my
did.
gosh. Tell us about it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot of older vintage fixed up machines as well as some of the newer stuff. And if you're a pinball fan, it's something to behold. I don't want to spoil too much of it, and I know you can look it up online, but I would say do not look up the pictures online. Just kind of go and walk in and be awed by it.
That sounds really cool. We have a few different pinball players among our family tree, so that is definitely something. I mean, I'm not a big pinball player. I'm a novice, but it's something I would definitely check out. And it looks like admission is free, and then you pay to play the games, and they're all playable. So, that's really cool. The Mandalay Bay Resort has Shark Reef Aquarium, which I have been to. It is so cool. It was kind of like a little guided tour, but you had a little recorder thing telling you. That's terrible of me. Like a little audio tour that you wore headphones, and then you had a little remote type thing. And when you went to the different exhibits, it would start telling you about each one. Have you ever been down there?
I've been, but I haven't been to into the aquarium.
Oh, it's so cool. And it's a really neat resort. just to go check out.
It is.
You know, anytime I go to Vegas, I like to just do the casino crawl.
Yep.
And just spend a day going through all of them and checking things out. But yeah, the Shark Reef Aquarium is really, really cool. And I think the admission is somewhere $20 and under. And you can find coupons for it. So you can do it even more cheaply. Atomic Testing Museum, which I don't know exactly where it is, but it sounds really fun.
I haven't been there either.
Yeah, it would. I think I've like seen pictures from people who have gone, but it's definitely idea. There's a mob museum, which is also supposed to be really good that I did not know existed.
Yeah, Craig's been there. He likes that.
Okay.
Does he list the Neon Museum on there?
No, and that's one I was going to mention because that's something that our little Tricorder team has discussed doing on
You have
Monday.
to go.
Yeah, I've never been. I see everyone's pictures, and I wish
It's so
I
good.
could go. So if we should definitely do it.
So good.
Anybody's welcome to come who can get there. But yeah, there's that, and then there is.
So real quick though, before we move on, just in case anybody doesn't know what it is, so the Neon Museum is a small little outdoor promenade where they rescue and resuscitate old Vegas neon and lighted signs from old casinos and restaurants and resorts that are no longer there. And it is like this slice of history that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Just to witness and go at night.
Yeah.
Go at night because they turn
gosh.
the lights on and you can just see these gorgeous signs. I actually have some on my Facebook page, but I can cross post some into the unofficial Facebook group if anybody wants to see them. They're really cool.
Yeah, I'm always super envious when I see people that go. It's always been on my list and it just never happens because every time I'm in Vegas, I just stay at the Rio the whole time. Alternate Reality Comics. Is that the comic store that you mentioned or is that a different one?
It is the one on Fremont Street. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, he doesn't say. It just says best comic shop in town and a really awesome restaurant across the street. But there's a lot to check out. There's like the Pawn Stars shop. If anybody watches that, that's been on my list to do that I didn't.
That's way off strip though, by the way.
Yeah. And Count's Customs, I think. I'm just thinking of all these shows that I watch.
Yeah. You know what? By the way, anybody, speaking of people who want to try these places out, like the Pawn Stars shop, it's a very expensive cab ride.
Oh, yeah.
There and back. So be very, very, very aware that if you're going to go there and you do not have your own transportation, it's going to cost you
definitely
a pretty penny to get there and back. Yeah, you're probably going to have to call a cab to get back too, because whereas on the strip, you can walk around and just get in a cab. But yeah, I don't know if you can stand out front of the Pawn Stars shop and actually hope to get a cab in any but a timely manner. You may have to call.
Yeah. And, John mentions down here at the bottom of his notes talking about getting around town, and it's come up in chat recently, is Lyft and Uber service, which the cost he estimates is about 1/3 the cost of a taxi. I don't know if that's quite on the dot. I mean, I've never used Uber or Lyft.
Well, truthfully, I haven't used Uber out there. I've used Uber here, and the prices are okay. I would imagine, knowing the prices of cabs out there, that could very well be about accurate.
Okay.
Because cabs are super pricey.
So he's got the estimate for an Uber from McCarran to the Rio is $16 to $20 plus a tip. When I usually go via cab, it's about $25 to $28 with the tip. And then I split that with a friend. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. But it's definitely a good option, I think, for people who want to go to somewhere off strip. That might be a less expensive route than taking a cab. Bill Smith from Trek Geeks had a really good comment in one of the threads talking about Uber and Lyft and taxis and how you should always get their information, like their taxi number, their ID code, in case you have to file a complaint.
I've been very fortunate in that regard in Las Vegas. Whenever I have taken cabs, the drivers have always been very reputable and usually quite talkative.
Yeah, mine have been really nice too. I haven't had a bad experience at all. So like I said, I'm okay with taking a cab. I find it to be super quick, and I find friends. Usually closer to the convention, people will post in the group, and we might have a separate thread just for people looking for a ride share, because that's an easy way to split up the cost.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Whether it's a taxi or Uber.
Yep, pile in.
Yeah,
Pile
and so
in.
I know the third option, just to mention it, is taking the shuttle. And there is no shuttle to and from the airport in the Rio directly, like owned by the Rio or owned by Harrah's. You have to take an independent shuttle. But I think that's usually around like $7 one way. But you have to wait for the shuttle, and then it does stop at other resorts.
Yeah, so it could take you a little longer.
Yeah, I'm just very much sold on sharing a cab, getting in a car within minutes and being there quickly so I can see everybody.
So, yeah. Speaking of, while we're talking about leaving the Rio and going out on the town around Vegas to see some of these places, or just to see the Strip, if you're not familiar with Vegas, and you've been just to the Rio before and you haven't gone out, or if this is your first time out there, seriously, you're going to be going out at night, and just please be aware of your surroundings at all times, especially if you're going to Fremont Street or Old Vegas. Make sure that you're not doing the old tourist, looking around and looking up and just being in awe of everything, because you probably will be. But make sure you just keep your, guys, keep one hand in your wallet pocket. Ladies, keep your purse tight against you. Like, keep an arm over it so that someone can't snatch it, because it can and will happen. So I'm serious. This is a guy who's been to Vegas more than 10 times.
I believe it. I do believe it.
I'm telling you, it's this. You're a little safer on the Strip than you are downtown in Fremont. Just be real careful. Especially number one place to watch out is if you're on Fremont Street and you go down to see the canopy of lights that goes off, at certain intervals. Once it gets dark, there's a whole canopy over the entire length of the street where they show like a video light show. I think it's once a half an hour. So it might be less frequent, but it's at least once an hour, probably a little bit more. But everybody will stop. Everybody will look up for the duration of this show, which is a couple minutes, and that is right prime time for people to go through the crowd and just snatch stuff, because everyone's paying attention. The music is super loud. Everyone's staring up into the air. No one's paying attention. Yeah. And I've just heard too many horror stories.
So be careful.
Yes.
Set phasers to kill.
Yes. Moral of the story.
I wanted to mention on a happy, fun note here.
Yes.
Bring up the energy.
Yes.
Along with the places to go and see, we brought it up in one of the chat threads. I think I did. There is a Millennium Falcon bar.
Where?
I'm not. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It's not on the Strip, I don't think. Yeah, Millennium Fandom Bar is what it's called. It is 900 Las Vegas Boulevard. And I don't remember everyone who was talking in that thread, but there was chatter of, maybe it was Desiree, that was suggesting having an event there at some point. Just having everybody go. So that might be something else that gets set up. I thought it would be really cool just to visit as a nerd.
As a nerd.
Right up my alley there. So that's something new. And then, we've talked about the stuff that's in the Rio that you can do. Like, there's going to be the KISS mini golf. There's a bowling alley over the Gold Coast, stuff like that. But that is awesome, fun stuff. In-N-Out Burger.
That's been brought up many times. We will be there.
We could talk about food all day. I really appreciate the suggestions, but I think There's so many places to eat in Vegas. I am picking out In-N-Out Burger though, because we don't have those in Denver. Everyone tells me it's good.
It's good.
I don't even know the last time I ate fast food, but I am going to try it out so that I can say I have done that.
Yes. It's worth it.
Okay. It better live up to the hype.
It will.
Let's see. Another good tip is buying extra liquor. The cheapest place is Walmart.
Really?
Yeah, you can go there and pick everything up. There's a bit more specialized things at Lee's Liquor, that is a local chain and just a few blocks away on Rainbow and Flamingo.
It's not too far.
So those are a lot of really good tips.
Yeah.
Places to go, things to do.
Yeah, thanks, John.
But I wanted to jump. Were there any other questions that stood out to you?
Not that I saw.
Okay. I know Desiree here commented about meeting people and being shy and having a little bit of social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is really tough for me because although I am an introvert, I can be very extroverted, and I'm not a very shy person. I will turn around and strike up a conversation with most anybody. And that is part of the story of Claire and I, that I heard her in a conversation behind me. I turned around, jumped in. And by the time we got up to check into our room, I was like, hey, do you want to get rooms close to each other? And we did. And Claire is not the type of person that would ever have jumped out and recommended that or suggested that. So for me, it's easy, and I don't have a lot of advice, other than what we've already kind of talked about, which is just, turn to the person next to you and say hi. Like Larry said, if you've got a reserve seat, you're going to be sitting by the same people every day. You're going to be in lines for autographs, lines for photo ops. Everyone is a Star Trek fan. So, try to turn and say hi. But that's not easy for anybody. Do you have any advice?
I don't know, because I'm not great at that myself. I mean, I don't really have a lot of social anxiety, but I don't know. Sometimes I just seem to get fixated on what I'm doing, and I don't stop to take time out to do stuff like that. I have to kind of force myself to do it because I'm so task focused. I think, when I'm out there, I'm like, I'm going here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to that panel, I'm going to meet these people, I'm going to do that. I don't take enough time to maybe stop and talk to a random stranger now and then. In a line. Like, usually if I'm in a line, I'm with somebody else that I know already.
Right.
And I'm just kind of talking to them. There's a lesson I should probably take from this.
The nice thing is that sometimes people like me will turn around to you and just start talking. But that doesn't always happen. So it's a subject that I really would like to talk about in more depth, but I really would like some input from people who are more shy, who do have social anxiety, and who have found a way to do this and to make themselves comfortable enough to introduce themselves to the person next to them. I think that if anybody wants to, shoot us a comment, send us an email, something like that, I would really love to have that for future discussions, because it's impossible for me to give really good advice on that, being that I'm not that way.
Yeah. I wish I could do something better too, because I'm not really that way, but I definitely can understand where she's coming from. And, it's easy for us to say things like, oh, just tear the Band-Aid off and go for it,
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily what she's really looking for.
Yeah. And, I would say, if anything, we're friends. We're friends on Facebook. Our listeners know us in that way. We're always open to someone coming up and introducing themselves and saying hi.
Sure.
And in doing that, we're happy to, help introduce you to other people.
Absolutely.
Finding someone that's a little more extroverted is an easy thing to do. To to have the company of someone that can start those conversations for you, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do if you're not already their friend.
Yeah, we'll just have to give everybody over to Jim Morehouse, and he can start all their conversations for him.
Yeah. Yeah. But like even Larry had said, and this is what we continuously hear from everyone, is that you are among family, you are among friends, and those are the connections that you're going to find there. And the one thing that he brought up, that I guess we can end it on, since we've covered a lot, anything that we've missed, I think we can definitely revisit in our next episodes before the convention. But, Larry had talked about, just having a fan come to meet you, that small interaction can mean so, so much.
Yep.
And I wanted to share a personal story, because it's very much along that tone.
Oh, I love these.
Here's the heart. I'm going to try not to cry. So a few weeks ago, I found out very, very suddenly, I think it was a Monday morning, that my friend Jonathan had passed away.
Oh.
And Jonathan is a Trekkie. He's been to STLV, and I knew him just online. I don't remember if it was through the group or just through when Facebook suggests to your friends, and they're like, add this person. And so their algorithm definitely grabs all the Star Trek fans when those are your interests. And so he might have just added me that way. But he was active in our group. He was a military veteran and had some extensive bodily damage from his time serving the country. And I don't have the very specific reason of his passing, but that seems to be what's been suggested, is that his body had just had too much. It had just reached that point. So I had met him last year. He came up to me just in the vendor's room and introduced himself. And it was, a small interaction, but finding out that he's now gone, I mean, I remember him, and I am so, so grateful that I had that moment, even though it was short, even though our friendship really only exists as a connection on Facebook, aside from, those 5 minutes that we spent talking. It was greatly impacting when he passed away. And so I would just like to share his story, because, he had the courage to go up and introduce himself to people and made an everlasting impact on me. And even if you're shy, even if you've got some anxiety, if you can gather that courage to just go up and say hi, then you could possibly be making an impact on someone too.
Yep.
And anytime we lose someone in the Trek community, it's really hard. We are a family. Even if you're just someone that I know through Facebook, you're still my friend and you're still my family. And having this community is just amazing. And I know that Jonathan will be remembered by all of his Star Trek and Star Wars friends and family. So I would just, my decision for STLV 50 is to take that courage that he had and go back to my crazy selfie personality of 2014 and take as many selfies and meet as many people as I can this year. I am going to be positive and optimistic and happy and take advantage of the time that I have and meet everyone and see everyone and take those pictures so that I have them to remember.
Yeah, I don't think I can top that at all. That was great advice. Definitely great advice. And that's very sad to hear.
Yeah, it's sad. We've lost several friends since I've been going, and it's never easy. And it doesn't matter if you didn't have a close friendship. It's just the fact that there are siblings in Star Trek.
Yep.
They're family. So anytime that happens, it is felt through the community. And even in the past when we've lost Star Trek friends that I didn't personally know, I still felt it and saw it. We're special people, and that makes me really happy.
It's a lot to take in. It's a lot
It's
to
a
think
lot to
about,
take
you know?
in. So we are, I think, our plans going forward. Sorry that it's just the two of us. I hope we have kept everyone entertained.
I think we've done a pretty good job.
Being new to podcasting, this is my little worry. But we are definitely going to do a cosplay episode. We have some vendors that may potentially come visit. Give us a little information about what's going down there. And I know that Jeff and I, at least, are very dedicated to getting out as many episodes as possible before the convention.
Absolutely.
I really love the feedback that we get in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group. You guys are so awesome. So we'll probably continue to throw those up, and we'll definitely revisit anything we didn't get to this time. We will do our best to get as much information out as possible. I can't believe it's under 3 months until I see everybody.
I know. It's going by so quickly.
It is. I will say this, one last note of advice. Although I am adamantly against buying photo ops and auto ops from Creation's website because of the $7.75 shipping and handling fee, buy them. Yep. It's going, you're going to pay that fee, but for Whoopi, for Kirstie Alley, I think even for like TNG cast, any captains, buy the ticket because they are going to sell out. They are capping them off, and you do not want to get there and regret that you didn't get it.
Exactly. Yep. Excellent advice. Bite the bullet. Pay the extra $8.
Yep.
And just go for it. So
just go for it.
Yeah. So I think that about brings us to the end of another great episode of Shore Leave. This is going to be an extra long one.
Yeah.
By the way. So you guys I know that people have been waiting a little while. It's been a little bit since we've done one. Yeah. So this will be an extravaganza for everybody out there. And I think we'll be doing another one relatively soon.
Pretty soon. The more information that they release, the more stuff we have to talk about. Exactly. But I think our cosplay episode will be pretty good. And then getting these vendors together to talk to. And then I would like to aim for at least 1 or 2 more general chat.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. So I'm sure we can pull that off.
Yeah, I will do my best.
Yes. And I know that while we're closing up, I know that I don't know how many Shore Leave listeners saw this, but I know that I had teased a pretty big Tricorder announcement just about a couple weeks ago now, almost 2 weeks ago now. And I'm not revealing it yet, but I just want to say that we are one step closer to being able to reveal it. So the first phase of it is in place, and wheels are turning, and we should be getting our authorization to let the cat out of the proverbial bag here very, very shortly. So if anybody has been hanging on the announcement, just know that you're not going to be hanging much longer.
You're just going to tease them a little.
Just a little. Just a little. Well,
it's a good thing I can keep a secret.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Heather knows. Heather knows. All the hosts of our Tricorder shows know, but everyone has kept their lips very tight. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you all for that. All right. So Heather, any place people can find you online? Want to plug the Facebook group?
Yeah. So our Facebook group is Unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Convention. Just asked to be added. It's a closed group, so we got to approve you. I'm Heather Barker on Facebook too. You can find me through the group, or you can search for me. I usually am doing the LLAP hand sign in my picture, so I'm not hard to find. And then I am Sketching Venus on Twitter and Instagram.
Excellent. And you can always find us at TTT_pod on Twitter, tricordertransmissions.com, facebook.com/tricordertransmissions. We also have a YouTube channel, Tricorder Transmissions, and I am J_Benj, B-E-N-J, J_BENJ on Twitter. So if you want to hit us up, feel free. We'd love to talk to you, and we'll see you next time.
Live long and prosper.
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.